Well, welcome everybody to the regular monthly meeting of the Mattacheese Utilization Committee of October 9th, 2025, held in the conference room A. And I will do a roll call as we have a member on Zoom. And I will start with John Anderson, please.
Here.
Andrew Laird.
Here.
Barbara Lavoine.
Here.
Lindsay Petro.
Here.
Thank you, Lindsay. Joe Potska is not here. How about Casey Schmidt?
No.
No. And myself, Sharon Weimer.
And Roby.
And Roby is also, well, she did advise that she won't be here at this meeting. Well, that's interesting. So there are 5 of us.
You're fine.
Yeah. And we'll go to ask for any public comment. All right, and seeing there is none, we'll go to our 4th item on our agenda, which is the building reuse report. And that's a discussion with our Catalyst Architects subcontractor, unless the Heather would like to introduce.
I think Todd is on the call. Todd is from Catalyst, and so he was out of town, but it was going to call in. And I'm going to share the screen and walk through the materials. And Todd, hopefully you can unmute and let us know that you're here.
Yes, I am here.
Perfect. Great, Todd. Thank you. So I think the purpose of having Todd on the call was to give the committee sort of an overview and update on the Catalyst report, which is the existing conditions, existing facilities review and opinion of costs report. And so Todd, if you're prepared, I think what I was going to suggest was that I will move to the page at the table, which kind of shows the different scenarios that your office has looked at. And maybe you could start with a brief overview of how this table is set up, and then work your way through the footnotes, which I think is the main thing that changed over the past couple of weeks. Todd, does that sound okay?
Sure, that sounds good. And everybody, I apologize for not being there in person. I had a previous commitment that I've stepped away from for a little bit. So I am in my car sitting here. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay.
Yeah, Todd, we understand. So you don't need to apologize. We're thankful you're here.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So yeah, let me start with the table. So working from left to right. So we did make some clarifications and a few adjustments based on comments that we have received back over the last few weeks. Starting with the demolition column, we have clarified that $3.7 million number that we're showing for demolition on there does not agree with the number from the Axios report, which I believe came in just under 3 million. It was about $2.99 million. And just wanted to clarify that in case anybody was referring back to earlier in the report. We do mention the Axios number. And then if you look at our column, we're carrying a different number because in looking at some comparable regional projects and speaking with our partner that we're working with on some of the cost estimating exercises here, we felt like their number was a little bit light. So we averaged it up to about $32 a square foot. And I believe the Axios report was somewhere around $26 a square foot. That number has not changed. It's what you would have seen in the previous reports, but we just wanted to clarify that we are carrying a slightly higher number on demolition. Just we want to be a little more conservative with that number. Moving into the second column, we are now calling that column repairs. I think there's been a little bit of confusion about what that number represents. And in some of the conversations, it's been approached as sort of renovating that building into a new school. These numbers under the repair column were taken directly from the Axios report. They do not consider what the end use of that building is in their sort of repairs and code improvements cost estimate. So it's really just a number to make that building habitable again without consideration for use or any significant alterations or a change in use for that. So we just wanted to clarify that those demolition and repair numbers do come directly from the Axios report, and then they serve as the basis that we build on for each of the scenarios that follow. So we're no longer calling those scenario A and B. We're just calling those demolition and repairs. And then when you move to the third column, then we get into scenario A, which is taking the demolition numbers, the building repair numbers, and then folding in an additional estimate to change those buildings into some sort of municipal office use, and renovating the existing gymnasium and auditorium into some sort of new recreation center. Um, so that's scenario A. Scenario B, there were some questions about a couple of things on scenario B. So this is the recreation center where we're demolishing the classroom wings, and then yeah, sorry, just looking down the column here, demolishing the classroom wings, and then repairing and upgrading the auditorium and gymnasium wing alone. We feel that in order to accommodate some additional support spaces like toilet rooms, locker rooms, offices, provide things like an entry lobby and accessible entry, we would need to put a small addition on the building as well. So we are accounting for about 3,000 square feet of new construction space. So as you do go down that column now, you'll see the demolition of the existing classroom wings, then the repairs and upgrades for the auditorium and gymnasium, and then the number of $7.7 million, which is the fit up for all the equipment, all the finishes, all the additional code upgrades that go into that. And then we're carrying $1.95 million for a 3,000 square foot addition. So now the total for that will be $25.6 million roughly. Moving to scenario C, this is an all new facility. Based on the feedback that you got at your last meeting with the gentleman from the recreation department, we've developed a sort of a baseline building program that you'll find now in the footnotes on the following page. So that's footnote number 9, which is a single story recreation center. It's just a high level conceptual program based on what we heard from that meeting. So that consists of full size gym, which would be sort of, typical high school gymnasium size with a large, full size single basketball court with room for spectators around that. Then it would, through the use of blended lines, you could also use it as 2 full-size practice courts with no room for spectators. So you use the blended lines to, get different configurations for the full-size basketball court, 2 practice courts. You could use floor sleeves to convert it to pickleball or indoor volleyball or whatever other uses you want to incorporate in there. And then in addition to that, we have space for toilet rooms, reception and offices, storage, utilities, and general circulation to kind of round out the program there. A couple of other spaces we've incorporated into this program. We've reserved 1,000 square feet, which would be 2 medium-sized multi-purpose rooms. So you can picture 1,000 square foot space could be 2 500 square foot medium-sized rooms with an operable partition down the center that could be opened up for a larger meeting room. And then in addition to that, 600 square feet for 2 small multi-purpose medium rooms. The smaller rooms could be for art activities or, other similar things. But then again, you could have an operable partition that you open up and have a larger room. So it's, I think it gives you a nice sort of, it's consistent with what we heard from that meeting, and also gives you a nice level of flexibility in this program. We did not account for another full-size second court because what I heard from his comments was that was sort of a second tier, a nice to have, but we didn't include it in this number here. So this 18,300 square feet is the total number of square feet. And that's coming in at approximately $650 a square feet, a square foot for a total cost of about $16.5 million. Moving over
So-
to, oh, sorry,
What
good.
was what was the price on that?
16.5 million.
Oh, down the bottom, total, I'm sorry, yeah. okay.
Yes.
Todd, oh, go ahead.
None of this includes fields or anything like that.
Correct.
It's
Buildings.
Todd, just one thing, I moved to the footnotes page while you were describing the recreation space, and now I'm back on the table. The one thing that we wanted to point out was that the previous version of the report had a 35,000 square foot building. It was much larger. It was envisioned as a complete community center. And so that building was much larger. The dollar figure was a lot higher. So it's just important to know under scenario C that this is scaled down to kind of match at least the projected idea of a recreation center. And so there's been a significant change in that figure, the total dollar figure under column C, based on that size difference. I just wanted to point that out because there's a big difference between the reports. Todd, do you want to just touch on the remaining scenarios, and then I don't know if it's worth going through the footnotes specifically, but
Yeah, so scenarios D, E, and F. I don't think anything changed in those in terms of the costs. We did clarify in the footnotes that those estimates exclude prevailing wage because those are assumed to be private projects. So projects that the town would not undertake. So that's inclusive of potentially renovating the existing classroom wings. So, and then the scenarios E and F would be demolishing all the buildings. So nothing has really changed, but the only clarification I think was that we took out prevailing wage. And in terms of the additional footnotes, so the only things that I think that I didn't touch on was we did clarify that scenario. Well, no, we're not calling it a scenario, but we're calling the repairs estimate does not include any accessibility upgrades and improvements. So when you get into the scenarios A through C or A through A, B, and D, those any improvements to accessibility would be included in those additional scenarios, but not in that basic repair estimate. And I'm just going quickly back through.
Is that full ADA is included in the others?
Yeah, so any of those,
Walls, everything?
yes,
doors?
those assume that everything is being reconfigured, and it would include a new use, and would also include the ADA and AAB upgrades that would go along with that.
Thank you.
I think in terms of the footnotes, I think that really kind of touched on most of it.
The scenario B for the 7,785,000, you have
Yes.
footnote 6. And that indicates you're putting in the new heating system because it's a standalone now building.
Correct.
And is there any benefit to having 5 or not? I know 5 is in the retrofit for offices. And the 5 is estimate includes fit up costs for 34,600 square feet of recreational space. So this is not that, correct? I don't know if you should have.
So 5. So includes fit up costs for. Yeah, you know what? Actually, those numbers. I'm glad that you mentioned that because I think footnote 5 needs to be revised now. I missed that because we're actually still showing in footnote 5 that it's $200 a square foot, but now we've bumped it up to $225. Yeah, so that should be revised. I think what I could probably do to clarify this is now fold 5 and 6 into one note and correct that number. But yeah, so both scenarios A and B include an allowance for upgrading or for installing a new HVAC system for that wing. So I will correct that.
And when you do this, are you doing it based on like a field house, or are you doing it just normal construction kind of thing for all of these replacements? Are you
I'm not
the
quite
least
following that.
Are you doing the least expensive option for doing a new recreation center? Is it a field house, or is it concrete and steel?
So, so for like scenario C, for the
Yes,
new construction,
yeah,
that's, no, I mean, this is something that we would see pretty consistent with a municipal project where you're, providing a slightly higher level of fit and finish
okay,
than you would see in some of these commercial facilities that are really just, say, like a Butler building that's fit up with courts in it.
yeah,
This is a slightly higher level of
more,
fit and finish. So
okay, thank you. Any other questions from the committee, and Lindsay, any?
I think the only question I have would be in the repair scenario, with that not including any ADA compliance updates, is that even like legal or allowed? I guess I'm confused, yeah.
yeah, so I think if you refer back
Joe
to
is
the
here.
Axios report, um, it's really they're just they call it like a point in time estimate. So they've walked into the building and said, these are all the things that are failing in the building. And in order for somebody to occupy it, you need to fix, these HVAC problems, these, um, structural problems, or what I don't have it in front of me, but there's a whole list of things that they've evaluated and given estimates for the repairs. But they're very careful to qualify that it's without consideration for use. So although it's a school building, they're not saying that these repairs are going to get it to a point where you could occupy it as a school again. I think you really just need to look at that repairs column as the basis that we're building on for each of these other scenarios. You still need to apply a use to it. So if you say you're going to add offices to it, then you need to look at that. You take that repair estimate and then you add another $60 a square foot in order to get it to the level that you could actually use it for something. It needs to be altered and fit up for some sort of use. I think, if you looked at that repairs column alone and you said you wanted to make it into occupied as a school again, there would be another exercise where you take that repair estimate and then build on top of that to fit it up as a school, to meet all the modern needs, in terms of finishes and fixtures and technology and all that stuff that needs to be layered in there.
Yeah. So basically, the repairs column is the one that as a standalone could not be presented as an option. All of the others could be, like the repairs column would be plus something else. It can't just be that on its own.
Correct. And that's why
Got
we
it.
tried to kind of
Thanks.
redefine those so that it wasn't a scenario anymore. Now it's just kind
Yeah.
of there are two columns that tell you what it costs to demolish and repair it as is, but then the scenarios build on what could it be, what occupancy could it be, and how much would it really cost to get there.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions?
Are we not considering scenario A?
I think we've asked for this cost to consider it.
I thought we were told not to look at municipal offices.
Well, I think the other information that we have substantiates what you're just saying. But also, if you look at the price, it's $54 million to do something that is huge amount of space to produce municipal offices that probably aren't needed.
I think it's going to be part of the narrative in the memo that goes to the select board. We looked at this price, it's too high. We don't really have the need for this much municipal office, and there probably isn't a need for this much office in general. And that's why you kind of might have said we're not pursuing that option.
We did include it as a key issue to try to accomplish in the memo as well. It ended up being last, but I think it is something that the committee should talk about after
Right.
kind of going through the bubble diagrams and the rest of the issues.
Right.
So Sharon, if it's okay, what I
Sure.
heard was there was a minor revision potentially that Catalyst would do is gonna look at footnote 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Probably combine them and then just clarify how they kind of get applied to those three scenarios.
Right,
And then I think the report kind of would be packaged up and it would be part of, information that
Presentation.
goes online
Yep.
and then is available to the select board and anyone else who's interested in looking at it.
right. Does that sound all right with everybody?
So once the edits are made, you're comfortable with it being posted on the town
I
website?
think everybody would be, right?
Sure.
Posted, do we want to do that before we meet with a select person, select or?
If I could, I think it would be great
Okay,
to have it online because then we can include it as a link in a memo to the
Okay.
select board. So
All right.
it would be available electronically that way.
Okay.
So
all
I think
right.
that'd be preferred.
Lindsay, that all right with you?
Sounds great.
Okay. I think we're all set then on that.
And so I just, Todd, thank you because I think Todd's at a conference, so I appreciate you kind of coming in and helping walk through that. It was really helpful.
Of course, and thank you guys for accommodating me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, take care, everybody.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, bye.
The next, oh, by the way, I don't think when I introduced the meeting, I forgot and neglected to say it's a hybrid meeting. It's also a recorded meeting, so I apologize
I
for
would
that.
also note that Joe Potska is present.
Okay, and what time is it now?
I'm not exactly sure when he
He
came
joined
in.
at 6:18, but I think, and I don't mean to interrupt Kathy, but I was going to ask that also, Madam Chair. I can't see everybody that's there. And for the minutes, did you want to let me know everybody that's
Yes,
present? in the room?
absolutely.
Great.
Yeah, you heard the roll call though, yes?
Yeah, I have the members, but
Okay.
and Kathy I see there, and yeah, I just
And
wanted to, if there's
Megan?
anybody off camera.
Yeah, Megan is our new economic development director.
Director of
Community
Community
Development.
Development. Yes. And
And-
Jay is the other one. And Mary
And Mary-
Waygan,
Mary-
WAYGAN, Portable Housing for the town.
And then you already introduced
And
yourself,
Jeff.
Jeff Bag.
And that's it. All set?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. The next order of business is the bubble diagrams discussion with consultant BSC Group, Jeff Begg.
Great, thank you. So, in the packet is the memo I'm sharing on my screen. BSC Group provided 3 bubble diagrams earlier on, and we're revising the memo. It's dated October 3rd. And at this point, this packet and memo contains six what we're calling bubble diagrams. A couple notes that are listed here. Really, the idea is that these are theoretical in nature, and it's an early stage of this process to get to drawing actual site plans, depicting parking spaces and locations of roads and buildings. We have found that this exercise really helpful. So the first 3, I will go through the first 3. They've had very minor changes, mostly just to a couple labels, and then the latter 3 are more updated based on the past meetings of the committee and a couple conversations, just to kind of get the bubble diagrams to match these options, these different sort of areas that different uses could go. So, item number 2 is that for the bubble diagrams, there has been an assumption that most of the Mattacheese Middle School buildings would be removed. And the exception is the gymnasium and auditorium. So that came through in the community meeting. It was a topic of conversation, and one of the conversations later on tonight and the key issues is to talk about that. But the cost to keep those buildings and make them something useful seems prohibitive, at least in terms of these bubble diagrams. And number 3 is that redevelopment of the property, however long it takes or whenever it occurs, would likely be in a phased approach. And we're trying to acknowledge that, but we're not detailing out phases at this point. And the school, Emmy Small, is a factor in that. So we'll kind of cover that through the conversations tonight. We'll talk about that in more detail. So their approximate scale show how certain uses could be cited and are intended to help inform this committee and the community as to arrangements which could be included for the creation of 3 detailed conceptual site plans, which is our ultimate goal. So scenario 1, again, this was previously discussed and previewed with the committee. This is the school focus. So this one has any small, holding space adjacent to the existing buildings. And that was one of the early discussion points, was in order for the school to be occupied and build a new building next to it, you'd preserve that space. When all is said and done in this scenario, the ME small buildings could be potentially removed and available for future build out of housing. Along the top was really intended to show some town recreational opportunities. We did relabel the gymnasium. You can see it highlighted in blue. We relabeled it to be recreation center. Some of the early discussions we had labeled it as a community center. And so we've been able to clarify that we're really not talking about a full-blown community center. The conversations would be around a recreation center for these purposes. I think we added an arrow to show some main access points on this one as well, just in terms of the location of the other side street on Higgins Crowell. So these are really minor amendments that have been made to the first 3. The second bubble diagram, we changed the label of the blue outline, which is intended to show a new building, and we just relabeled it new recreation center. This one is sort of a hybrid where we're showing the renovated gym and a new recreation center, just to show that there could be the potential opportunity to renovate the space and build something new next to it. And then this one had sort of more housing shown. This shows 2 bubbles for housing. And we did hear feedback after the first meeting on this that might be too much housing. So we try to reflect that in the later bubble diagrams, the newer ones. And then the third scenario, mixed use housing, community use, and sports facilities. So this envisions a regional sports facility, and you can see it's mostly centered on the left side of the property. I think of note here in this earlier diagram is we really filled it out with ball fields and multi-use fields, and you notice that there's really no housing along Chickadee Lane. And that was something that came up in later discussions, that's really important to kind of try to show coming through the next 3. So that's one of the revisions. In this one, we did increase the size of the building. The blue building represents a larger sports facility building. We changed it from 100,000 square feet in the first drawing to 120,000 square feet, just to be a little bit more in line with the other bubble diagram. So it's just a slight modification to scenario 3. So then moving on, we tried to highlight on the top that this is new. So this is scenario 4, and it's a mix of uses, and the heading is school, recreation, and housing. And what we're trying to depict here, I'll try to zoom in a little bit more. What we're trying to depict here was based on some discussion. The ME small, is something that the committee has been asked to hold a place for as the town goes through the process to explore a new school. It's a factor. And so this bubble diagram shows a new school immediately on top of the location of the existing buildings. And so this would have some implications to developing a school there. We're not sure where students would go during this period of time, but this really reduces the amount of space that's kind of held for the school. The lots along Chickadee Lane were revised in all 3 of the scenarios, are pretty much the same. The first 3 lots on Chickadee Lane are perpendicular. So perpendicular, and then the upper 3 lots kind of run parallel. And one of the purposes of that change is to show that those housing lots might be able to be developed even if the solar array stays in place. So that's a big unknown factor, but we're showing 6 lots along Chickadee. And then in the center of the property, really looking at this idea of not keeping the gymnasium and auditorium, because this came up in discussion that It's costly, but it also anchors everything up to the top of the site. And so by thinking about removing the gymnasium auditorium, it allows the conversation to have the new recreation center building move down to the street, which would be a much more ideal location for that type of building. It could be complementary to the school. It kind of shares that same access way. The size of that building right now is just kind of scaled out at about 20,000 square feet. We just talked about in the Catalyst report, maybe it's 18,000 square feet, maybe it's 20,000 square feet. We just want to just kind of show approximate size. Showing some parking in the middle and then going up towards the top of the page, playground, multi-use field, several multi-use fields and some additional parking. So this is intended to kind of be a town recreational facility, at least in terms of bubble diagramming. Moving to the right, creating a buffer, and the buffer is highly variable. Once I think there's a conceptual site plan, really hone in on where the buffer is, but the idea is that there would be a buffer between these uses. And then the housing, the label, we changed the label, so we took out some words. We kept it a little more simplified, just to say 60 plus units on 7 acres. And so for the time being, that allows someone to come up with a unit per acre calculation, just for conversation. And then
Would it be helpful to continue using 60 plus units consistently through the
I think
different?
we have,
Oh.
I think all 3 should have kept that same.
Well, I was just saying there's no plus in this particular one, scenario 4. It says 60 units in particular.
Oh, okay, so yeah, the
Yeah,
text
text.
versus the map, yes.
Right.
So in the text, yeah, I would like to revise the text to just say, well, yeah, I guess we use the word approximately. Plus or minus might be the proper technical term, but we will adjust the text, because you're right, it says approximately 60. The map says 60 plus.
Yeah.
Very good catch. Just a finer detail with the housing, we're showing it go into the buffer, this wooded area a little bit, just as this idea that there might be some discussions about going into the wooded space a little bit to create flexibility of design, but there still is a pretty significant size wooded area at the front, and that was something that we heard kind of all throughout the community meeting as being important. So then moving on to scenario 5, which is the second new bubble diagram. This is also a mix of uses. This is housing and sports facility. And scenario 5 and scenario 6 are pretty similar, but I think the key thing to look at visually is that in this one, number 5, the housing is sort of on the page left. It's where Emmy Small is today. In 6, it moves. So just keep your eye on that. That's the significant change. The housing lots on Chickadee Lane are there. There's a buffer along Higgins Crowell kind of shown for the housing. Then a main access way kind of going up the center of the property. And up the middle and to the right would be sort of this regional sports facility concept. So here's where we have in blue the building. 120,000 square feet. That's kind of the number that came through some of the land use reports and the conversation from the chamber at the last meeting. So we're just kind of holding that as a rough scale. Currently, we're showing space for parking. There should be a note in here that the parking numbers may change. Once we get into a site plan drawing, these numbers are likely to change, and they may need to go up to accommodate the use. So for now, though, we're trying to show that parking can fit, with no special configuration. That's 329 spaces. And then moving up to the top of the map, we added a couple additional parking. I mean, not a couple, 40 additional parking spaces that might serve playground or ball fields over to the left. And then we're showing multi-use fields to the right side of the page. And one of the reasons why we put this arrangement together was there was a conversation about potentially lighting these fields hypothetically in the future. And so putting the multi-use fields to that right side is farther away from any residential structures, and it could just demonstrate that might actually be feasible. And then the ball fields, could be variable. Those could turn into multi-use fields. We're just showing spacing of this at this point. Very minor encroachment into some of the wooded area. but it still shows the idea of a buffer, separation from the vernal pool, and just really identifying that there is space for this concept to fit. And then finally, scenario 6, again, is housing and sports facility again, but I think one of the key differences here is the location of the housing bubble moved back over to the Mattacheese buildings. And we just wanted to kind of show these variations because it is a little bit of a puzzle piece. You know, these things could move around, but we wanted to demonstrate that it could work in either location. There are some potential benefits and challenges based on each one of these scenarios, and some of that comes and relates to phasing of the project. And so that will have to come through in discussions a little bit later once we get agreement on kind of way to move forward, but phasing would be a factor in some of these different scenarios. Housing lots on Chickadee, just consistent. And then here, kind of the center of the property would be that access way. The sports facility building could move around, but we kept it in that general location. We added a playground at the top of the map to show how perhaps that could be a playground that's accessible to residential uses next door. Parking kind of in the center, and then 4 multi-use fields, and just kind of demonstrating that if you pull them apart, the multi-use fields apart, we could put more parking there. Parking might run up and down the property along the multi-use fields as we develop concept plans, but basically this shows 440 parking spaces just as a rough idea, and then the housing label stayed the same as 60+ units on 7 acres, and that we're just showing that use of some of the wooded area, just because I think having some flexibility as you move into conceptual design, that might happen, it might not be necessary, we just don't know yet. So that's really kind of a quick overview, kind of a crash course on the bubble diagrams, but now the committee has 6. And so 6 is good. 6, they will stay in the packet, they'll be able to be referred to. But I think moving forward, figuring out a way to get down to 3 conceptual designs. That was really the goal of the bubble diagrams, is to help see where things could go and get direction on what might we want to depict in 3 concepts. So Sharon, if it's okay, I would ask Heather potentially if I miss anything.
Yeah.
Heather would want to chime in. Okay, she said no. So I'm happy to answer some questions or just keep going on to the key issues.
Well, first of all, I think we just want to check with everybody if there are any questions in terms of any of the bubbles or any of the comments, and if you have any comments or any questions about the bubbles. So
Casey's here.
Casey,
I just want to.
Barbara.
For the sake of clarification, with the exception of a couple of these diagrams, I think it's 1 and 2, we're assuming that the gymnasium, the current gymnasium and so forth is going to be removed. At least in your last 2 scenarios.
That's
Correct.
I'm trying to shut the fan off because I can't hear her.
Just unplug it.
Good idea.
Yes. The final 3, we took liberty to show what it would be like. I think that was something that we talked about in the last meetings, is by keeping the gym up at the top of the site there, it anchors, there's a cost factor, but it also anchors everything up in that area, and you have to build around it. So moving forward, it is totally possible that the gym stays and we'll rework everything, but this was a demonstration to show what that would be like, show some flexibility.
And the other piece is, of course, the Emmy Small School, what it's such an unknown. Okay.
Any other questions? Casey, did you have a question?
No questions from my side. Apologies for being late.
No problem. So now we want to go into the next item, which is the preliminary findings and votes probably discussion. Jeff, you want to take that away?
Sure.
And the only thing I'll mention in terms of this product is that, the second page has two notes where you're asking us to do something. And I was wondering if we could just finish the first 3 pages, and then, I'm sorry, the first 2 pages, and then put those with the other note that you have up top on page 3. So in other words, just let's do all 3 of those together.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, and I think the memo is a lot, 8 pages, so it's been passed around to the committee, and we tried our best to encapsulate the major. I mean, these are the big key issues. There are a lot of other issues that I think will get resolved over time, but I turned to page 2. I just wanted to highlight that we've identified about 7 key issues, all of which I think the committee has talked about, and I just wanted to mention them first before I kind of go into the structure of the memo.
Sure.
But one is really demolition of the majority of Mattacheese school buildings. I'm just talking about that. 2 is whether to renovate or demolish the gymnasium and auditorium building. And here, I think I just want to reiterate for everybody that just because we're talking about this doesn't mean that the building's going to be demolished. I mean, this is just conceptual. This is to get a framework on the designs moving forward. 3 is whether a new town-owned recreation building should be included. 4 is inclusion of housing in every scenario. 5 is inclusion of a regional sports facility, kind of in 1 or more scenarios. 6 is the potential for Mattacheese, the property, to be the location for new Emmy Small School. And then 7, we kind of tacked it on the end, but we wanted to tackle it, which is whether the existing Mattacheese building should be held for municipal offices. So, I think those are 7 really important big topics that we could try to walk through tonight. But then just going back to page 1, the way the memo was structured was just to try to anticipate and try to help that the committee after this meeting hopefully is going to provide an update and information to the select board. So really we crafted this so that after all the discussion tonight, BSC group can help draft the memo that would go from this committee to the select board, because that meeting is set up potentially for November 4th.
That's what it's on. Yeah.
Okay. So with that, I think that's kind of the preface. The goal is really to ensure that the select board and overall community are aware of the progress made to date. I think this committee is seeking some preliminary feedback from the select board.
And that's really an important thing that we all hear. This doesn't necessarily even have to be, what comes back to us. I mean, they may tell us to do a single use for the property, or I'm not sure what they're going to say. So it's just to get their ideas and their benefit of their ideas so that we can make sure that we're fashioning something that has some relevance to what they're thinking about. So I think that's, I want everybody to realize that. So it's not a done deal, I guess.
Correct. And I think what Sharon is saying is really important. That first paragraph, the last sentence is our understanding is no formal vote is requested at the select board. This is just make sure that they're aware, in tune, have an opportunity to comment on the progress to date. So it's really structured. So there's a brief summary, progress to date, just a description of the community meeting. We would link. So I think the idea with the memo is that it can be transmitted electronically, also be online, but I think it can allow anyone to click on the link for the summary of the community meeting. And similarly on page 2 at the top, the bubble diagram. So the document that we just went through with those minor changes would get published online, and then it could be linked in this document and be available for people as they're going through. So Sharon, I think this is where you said you would like to talk about the notes.
Yeah, well, why don't you read what you
Okay.
were anticipating to do, and maybe the committee will easily decide, and that won't be a problem. But I was just thinking it'd be easier to do it all 3 together. But if you want to do the breakdown, that's okay too, Jeff. Whatever you feel comfortable with. I guess the number 1 is the note on the following page has to do with number one. So you'd prefer, you did the key issues, but you don't want to do the one yet, I guess is what I'm sensing. So you want to just ask about whether Muck should approve the BSC memo containing the bubble diagram so it can be uploaded to the website and linked in this memo.
Correct. I think that would be, something that seems kind of straightforward, but we
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that.
Is everybody in sync with that?
I am.
Does that require a formal vote?
Lindsay?
I'm not sure if this is are we making a motion to approve?
Would you like to make a motion to approve or
Oh.
just allow this particular instance for it to be uploaded? Whatever.
Oh, I was asking more in the terms of for minutes. I'm fine with uploading it if we don't need a formal motion.
It can be by the consensus of the committee. They agreed to upload it
Thank-
after it's been slightly modified or updated.
Thank you. You're always so helpful. I appreciate that.
And the second one, Jeff?
That's the one I thought maybe we wait
yeah,
until we
yeah.
went through the key issues, because that'll really inform your
Okay.
answers to that
All right.
question.
Right. And the second note is just if at the end of the discussion, the group has opinions about which 3 bubble diagrams should be used to kind of move forward. It's a big conversation piece, but I put it up here with the bubble diagrams. So I think it should come later.
Yeah, okay. So do we want to go to number one?
Sure. So
Okay,
demolition of the majority of Mattacheese school buildings. So the reports and information that's available, is the first sentence, that have been identified that they're in poor condition. Catalyst has reviewed the information. Their report provides a comparative evaluation. As was discussed, kind of the repairs needed to bring the building just up to minimum code requirements was about 42 million. And then we ran through the scenarios. And so with the exception of the gymnasium and auditorium, I think that was a separate discussion. I guess we wanted to talk to the committee about whether there's agreement to, for the purposes of moving forward with concept plans, to allow the removal of the rest of the buildings based on everything that's been discussed to date. And so that was really the first action here.
okay. I'm going to remind everybody of an early conversation that our committee had with Bill. And we were very easily came together about the idea that the school buildings, A, B, and C, really were not adequate for someone that wanted to do housing out of them. In fact, we encouraged Bill to seek a renovation cost. So I would assume that for Jeff's question, the school buildings might be an easy vote to approve for this committee, but I'm always surprised. So of different thoughts, and we all have different ones. And so I'd like to hear from everybody on that issue. Anybody want to be brave and go first?
Well, sure. I don't know if I'm brave, but I'll go first. I think it was, at least in my recollection, that we would demolish the majority of the Mattacheese school. With some discussion about the gymnasium, but to be honest with you, my personal preference would be to just demolish all of it.
Yeah.
100%, including the gym.
Okay.
I'm in favor of that because I think in the big scheme of things, a level site gives you more options, better configuration, traffic flow, all those things, parking, and it allows a designer, an architect group to really kind of lay this thing out in its entirety, and it's,
Right.
from a holistic standpoint. So I'm in favor of leveling it,
The whole thing?
the whole thing.
John?
I would say at this point, I'm in favor of demolishing the school buildings with the gym and auditoriums to be determined.
Okay. Casey and Lindsay.
I'll echo what John said, certainly in favor of demolishing the school with to be determined on the gymnasium.
Yeah, I agree with that. At minimum, the school buildings don't need to be considered. And upon evaluation, maybe the whole thing.
Okay. So, I would take that to answer the particular question is on the school
Is
buildings.
Joe still on?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is he?
Can you hear me?
Oh, sorry, Joe. Yep.
That's
just
all right.
Ah,
I'm definitely in favor of demolishing the building. The only thing I would, if money's still got a little bit tight, retaining the gym might be a good idea, but I'd rather just do the whole thing at once and have a complete plan, including the demolition
Okay. Well,
of everything.
yeah, I appreciate that. And do you want to, does anybody want to indicate, since some people are indicating they'd like to also have the gym and the auditorium down, and it is our next question. Do we want to kind of combine that now in terms of, can you tell me those that suggested that they'd like to hold off on the gym and auditorium? What else would you need for that kind of decision to be made? Or we can just do
I think you
the
should
vote on the school buildings to make that simple,
Yes.
and we'll go from there.
I
And
think
then,
we should
I would-
separate.
I
okay.
think so too.
all right,
Can I just add one thing? So with regard to just the school buildings, that first question, a couple data points I just wanted to bring up because I think they could be items that would be useful to quickly tell the select board too, as part of this, discussion, the things that you guys use to kind of come to that conclusion. The cost for the cost to convert the buildings to municipal offices, and I think that was asked earlier, is significant. It's $55 million. And I think just, it didn't come through totally yet. So I just wanted to say this is that we did talk to Catalyst a little bit about it, and they said that it would be way more office space than the town would need. Because there is some other memo about other buildings, other facilities going other places. So even the idea of just moving town hall to that space would only fill a fraction of the building. And so I think that was like a talking point that might be useful for the select board.
right.
And then on the same vein, just related, because I'm trying to anticipate with the things that they might ask, kind of catching up to speed,
Yep.
is, what about converting the classroom wings to housing? And so that is in this chart, the renovation of the school to housing was $50 million, and it talked about 60 units could be fit in there. But the really important thing, I think, was that they came up with a cost per unit of over 800,000 per unit cost to actually make that happen. And then just for comparison, the idea of just for building a new building with housing, it's still high, but the cost per unit is about 428,000, so half. So kind of all those things together, those are quick talking points that the select board might want to know, is that the committee looked
I
at all that.
Yeah, I think this committee knew that early on in
Yeah.
January, to be quite frank, that the
It's a great
housing
point
was,
though for the public
yeah,
to see the difference in that number.
Right, and over 800,000 for a single unit of housing is not really feasible, realistic. So
I do think you need to list your findings. Based on these findings, we made this decision, and those are all the things that you looked at in order to make your decision.
Right.
Good
they were
point.
part of every of your paragraphs. Yeah. So, why don't we take a vote then, only on the school buildings? So a motion to recommend to the, and I'd call it a preliminary, because if for some reason they come back with something, we can come back and revote, okay? So this is our preliminary vote to our meeting on November 4th with the select board, that we would recommend taking down all the school building.
So moved.
And I have a,
Second.
With the exception of the gymnasium, just for
Correct.
clarification.
right, yeah. It's just the school building. And I'm sorry, who said that, Joe? Second?
Yes,
Yes, thank you.
yes.
All those in favor, can I have a roll call?
Aye.
John, okay, John,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Barbara,
Aye.
Lindsay,
I
Casey,
Aye.
and Joe.
Aye.
And Sharon, aye. Thank you very much. We've made a decision today. Yeah. Going for number 2.
So I think that was great. That was probably the easier one. And then number 2 is probably the hardest one. So we didn't put them in that order. Number 2, the discussion is about, the question about whether to renovate or demolish the gymnasium and auditorium. So the way that we tried to break this up were the first couple of talking points are about renovation, and then the latter are about demolition. But so maintaining the gymnasium and auditorium, which is considered one building, was identified, as an option right from the beginning to explore. Community members would expect the town to consider renovation, kind of as a first option. So as part of the project, we have Catalyst, and they provided the report. In terms of cost, just to recap, they, after the meeting with the rec director, talking about, how he would like to see the space function, the architect would be suggesting a small addition. So 3,000 square feet, it's modest compared to the size of the building, but it would be a 1-story addition off the front of the building to accommodate these additional spaces that aren't really there today. And to really, just kind of think about if the town is going to spend, close to millions and millions of dollars, that it should actually try to function as hoped. And so with the 3,000 square foot addition, the approximate number is 25.6 million, which is high. So that we'll just say that. And then location, we previously identified that keeping the gymnasium at the back of the property, so to speak, it really will anchor it there. All the parking and accommodations would be built around that, and it really does dictate where other uses will go. So it's just an item that we saw kind of right away. And then kind of the recreation department needs, trying to cite the meetings that it was discussed, the desire for the second full-size basketball court. It's not accommodated here. It's actually not accommodated in a new building, but the addition would give the space for storage, some small classrooms and other space, bathrooms and things like that. And then we did hash out together that the idea of demolishing the remainder of the buildings and keeping the gym would require a new HVAC, and so that's been factored in. So at least that's just a reality of kind of taking away everything else and keeping that same building. So those are some of the factors related to renovation, and then we dipped into the idea of demolition. So it's really sort of 3 sub components of that, which is to demolish it and using the site for another use. Some discussion about ongoing and continued use of the gym. And what we wanted to talk about was it's not part of the scope to consider if the town continues to use the gymnasium as is. We don't really know what the costs are going to be for continuing to maintain that building. It's been documented that some of the core systems are past their useful life. So we're just not able to put a number on that, but I think, at any period of time that the town continues to use the building, there could be costs associated with that. We wanted to identify.
I think
that
Roby
building.
did mention in the memo that she prepared that they are already having significant plumbing issues and flooding issues in the building.
And I think the main thing here was more for the community and even the select board and other people to know that we're talking about potentially demolishing the building, but it doesn't stop the continued use of the building. So it wouldn't stop the rec department from continuing to use it for some period of time. So we just wanted to make sure, because these processes, although we're talking like they will happen swiftly, they could take a period of time. And so we just want to be clear that even if we're proposing to demolish the building, that the rec department could still use it for a period of time.
The concern is if you've demolished the wings where the HVAC is and you're trying to just keep that, what do you do in the interim?
Correct. So
So
we did talk about that. And so if the town were to move quickly on demolishing the remainder of the buildings and keep the gym, the use of the gym might cease at that point, because without the actual renovation of adding the HVAC and adding the addition and making the bathrooms accessible, you probably would lose access to the gym, but it's a big unknown how long it would take for the town to acquire the funds, the approvals, and actually start removing part of the building. That could be, that could be 1 year, it could be longer. So during that period of time, the gym could be used.
It's limping along at best.
I think sometimes, I think all of us have felt an eagerness to help the recreation department. And because they're doing a lot of great programs, and because they have, for the first time in their life, an access to a gym anytime they want. And that's very unusual. But the other thing is, it was a question Kathy asked, is that at some point, no matter what you decide, whether it's tear it down, they won't have access to it. Or if they go to renovate it, they won't have access while it's being renovated. So that is never going to be, 100% that they can use it all the time. So if that's part of your, thinking, that may be, something added to it that you might say, well, actually, that's true. At some point, they're not going to have access to this, regardless of what you decide that's going to happen. So
I was just curious, I mean, very briefly on occasion that, I guess the school department has a lot of space and a lot of possibilities. I guess the big question was, why has there been such resistance from the school department to, allow use of a gym, especially in a scenario where we have a developing program, we tear things down, all of a sudden nothing, zeros, I mean, what is the option of working with these folks and saying, hey,
well, I think originally they said they didn't have access to any gym, but then when they really started to think about it, they had access to the Station Ave Elementary for, certain groups of youngsters. And I don't know, maybe they've just gotten out of touch, or, with the change of directors, I mean, without the support of a continuation of a rec director, you may not have had time yet to develop that. I mean, he's on paternity leave right at the moment.
If I might add, in talking with Steve, it's like whenever they go to the Station Avenue Elementary School, they have to bring everything with them. There's no storage there for them. So they're lugging all this stuff around all the time. And then if it's after, obviously it's always can only be after school hours. And then they need to pay for a custodian to be there while they're using the gym.
But that's always been.
I'm just saying that those are the ones that some of the reasons why it's harder for them to use the school gyms than if they had their own facility. They have purchased a significant amount of equipment, it sounds like, from all the different programs that they have. And I'm not sure where they would store that if they didn't have like some facility of their own. Like if Emmy's, if the gym and auditorium were going to be shut down, he has all this equipment he's got to find a place for now. But that's part of the problem, is not having a place to store it at the schools and the custodian costs. It's time and a half for a custodian.
So what I'm hearing is it's really not the school, it's just what.
Well, we don't know that.
This was
until you
for
have
Station
somebody to
Avenue
go.
is what he was saying, why they didn't use that one.
So either way, if we demolish the gymnasium, he would have to seek out those options for alternate locations, one way or the other.
Right. I mean, it would be ongoing soccer, because there are soccer fields at Sandy Pond, and there are fields here at Mattacheese for the time being that it's not being developed. But it's not to say they wouldn't have any programs, but interior ones, they would need to start talking to somebody. And if the school is built on this, I hope there's conversation among the folks that are negotiating all that for a gym to be used at Mattacheese, if they built that school. And it not be so small that you can't fit anybody in it, which is the problem with the Emmy Smalls gym. It's tiny.
And could I offer something too? Because I think putting together the memo, it was intended to try to put all the issues together. But it is clear that this particular question is intertwined with some of the other discussions. So it didn't all fit in this one spot, because I think otherwise this might be the most important kind of decision, but it has other influences.
Right.
And so,
Well, the other issue is the auditorium. And so I think I'm leaning towards, let's present it to the select board and see what their interest, that's how I'm developing in my head. Because in terms of quick conversations with Bob as the administrator, he was indicating that maybe the auditorium could be expanded. So, I mean, I would love to see how they all react to something like that.
sure.
Because he was suggesting it, you have to pay attention to it. And I'd like to do that and give the opportunity to the select board to direct us if that's really what they want to do. But when we invited the guests that we had, which was the CEO of the chamber, Cape Cod Chamber, and also our Yarmouth director of the chamber, he clearly said that was not his interest. He'd rather do an event center that was of a bigger sports facility that they can use the basketball courts as an event, center with spaces that can be used. So in my mind, it's totally up in the air in terms of, I'm not sure who's wants what for that purpose.
I guess it just brings me back to if we demolish everything, all the school buildings, we don't have any HVAC in there. There's nothing to heat it. There's nothing that the gym and the auditorium becomes useless. So then we're either tossing money into making a temporary fix,
Right.
or we're just figuring out a way to have the recreation program shift gears for a bit.
Yeah.
Sure. And if I could build on that, because I think
Sure.
that's where these other influences come in,
Right.
is I think that's a good segue, because if you talk about demolishing everything, one of the discussions here is this idea of the regional sports facility, and it came up whether there could be a public-private partnership where, if they build a giant building, maybe the town builds in access, through an agreement to that space, or access an agreement to the recreational field that they would potentially build. So that's one kind of, influence coming from the next set of discussions. The other quick notes I have here are really just comparing the cost to renovate to the cost of even a new facility that's purpose-built and actually provides everything in one place. That the rec director said, the cost comparison is the difference between 25 million and 16 million. And so those are numbers that I think the select board would want to have available. The two other ones are related to the other significant capital projects that the town has at least identified and listed. And we think that the select board would have thoughts on that because of their involvement with the capital budget planning process and those sort of things. The final one would be, and it's all kind of embedded in the memo, but it's not really clear in one place, is if there is forward movement on building a new ME Small, which would be a town school building, maybe there's, that school might have a gym, and that school might actually have fields attached to it, and those might be potentially available to the community as well. So there's a lot of
Yes.
influences
Mhm.
coming into this one question. So it's a difficult one.
Yeah, but Barbara makes a good point. I mean, but I think that needs to be presented to, in my view, to the select board. Because I'd like to find out if they have any interest in the auditorium, or are we just talking about the gym? Because that would help me decide, to demolish, to be frank, the gym and the auditorium, and build new and have them have a whether through a private partnership, or whether the town wants to build and has the money to build a smaller community gym that they can use, which I'm not sure, I'm not convinced, based on comments I've heard, that with the library and the school itself, whether there's all sorts of money for any of this stuff to take place. But it does have a life, I think, with the private-public partnership. So,
Just like to add one more piece to that. There's a design component by keeping those. It really does anchor that corner and pushes everything to that back. So housing has to reconfigure, and I think it's design should be considered.
So I guess we need to answer Jeff's question, which is number 2 on the list. Am I right at that?
Should have numbered them. That's a very good observation.
No, you did. Renovate or demolish the gymnasium and auditorium. I'd like to suggest that we don't make that decision yet until we hear from the select board. Is that a good go around? Or do you want to deal with this more directly? I need your input, so.
I support that. You're gonna be talking to the select in November? That's
Yep, November 4th. Mhm.
Yeah, why don't we just hold off on that? That decision, and to see what the kind of guides they can give us. I agree with you on that.
Yeah. Plus, we're divided,
Right,
so it's a jump ball.
yeah. But part of it is that it's an auditorium, and we're not really talking about the auditorium, we're talking about the gym. So I need to know whether we need to talk about the auditorium.
All due respect, I think that there hasn't been use of the auditorium. It hasn't been brought up by community participants as a really important feature, and it hasn't been highlighted like all lots
Well, I
of.
will tell you in private, and it's only because I've had a private conversation and with the couple people here in town that talked about, oh, this would really be good to have this big, to actually enlarge the auditorium.
That sounds great. Is that person that you talked to flush with $9 million to cover the difference between, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think my
Right.
opinion, my thought is that many things would be nice to have. Candidly speaking, we can't afford all of the things. At minimum, what we would desire as a community would be demolishing it and allowing more
Well,
space opportunities. That's just
Well,
my.
it was a town administrator in regards to our conversations with the Cape Cod Chamber and the Yarmouth Chamber. It was right prior to that. And I was surprised because the Cape Cod Chamber said, no, they weren't interested. They would go with what they had hoped would be a larger sports facility that would provide events. The possibility of having events with the disappearance of the building in Hyannis, they're really trying to focus on finding places that they can do some type of events that would bring more people to hotels and motels in Yarmouth.
So I may be an outlier here, but if we, in my opinion, keeping the gym and the auditorium at this moment in time, given the potential cost of, destroying everything, the school, all that other piece, I think we're just kicking the can down the road. Because at some point in time, we want to present to the selectmen what our recommendations are for the space. If we still have this little piece, then we're not really making I don't know. I just think we're kicking the can down the road and not making the decision about the gym. And I think if we were to do anything, it would be to focus on how we can better serve the recreation department until we can get a solution or whatever facility that goes in there, how we can help the recreation department keep their program, build on that, whether it's maybe we rent them a trailer or something that they can use to bring equipment. I don't know, but I think not demolishing everything in one clean sweep is just kicking.
I think you make a lot of sense. I so appreciate all your comments, and all I'm saying is that this is the first try with the select board. This is not a finish select board decision. We're just trying to find out how they feel about auditorium, gym, renovation, or demolish new. I mean,
But why are we asking them about the auditorium and not the school? What's the difference?
the money. I guess. I see the money mostly for demolition as
But
Barbara
that's
does.
I'm just playing devil's advocate here. That's our opinion,
Right.
which to Barbara's point, if it's,
I mean, if we should make a recommendation. If the select board wants to overrule our recommendation and say, no, we want to keep the gym in the auditorium, then that's what they would do.
Well, I was just counting when we were talking before, so we can revote and have that discussion if you'd like. I don't know if the people that voted for not having a discussion on, or not voting on the gym would like to maintain their position.
I mean, the hard part for me is that, if we demolish the recreation center, demolish the gym and auditorium, depending on the scenario, the three scenarios we provide to the select board, if there's not a succinct plan for recreation, I from day one, I've said that this is one of the biggest issues with this project is what do we do with recreation?
Right.
And you want to talk about year-round housing and bringing families to Yarmouth and everything, have no recreation department. I mean, it's, and I don't have kids and I don't use it, so it doesn't affect me, but personally, but I don't know, that's my.
Well, when you say we're not having recreation, are you not thinking that in a private partnership, you wouldn't have gyms built?
So that's why it's like, is it the chicken or the egg? Like, this is why this one for me is a hard question. If you're gonna do a private public partnership and yep, we're gonna do this giant sports facility and all these fields, and then the recreation department's gonna have X amount of use of that, great, I'm all for it, let's demolish, it's a no-brainer, right? To me, if in that scenario, right? But that's not the only scenario we're looking at, right? So it's
Right.
which
Well,
comes
so you
Second
think-
scenario is building new,
Sure.
which would solve their problem as well.
correct.
So I
But-
think there's a lot of options that either build new recreation facility or there's multiple options with a sports complex for a public-private partnership. So I think that is trying to be sure that we have incorporated the recreation department. It's unfortunate they built all this great momentum and they've got all these great programs, but we're not quite ready for them for a permanent location. This was a temporary thing that just exploded with a great program.
I mean, I'm going on the assumption that whatever three proposals we present to the select committee, it will incorporate a recreation department area place for us to keep that program going. My concern is the 2, 3, or 5 year interruption. And in terms of where do we make sure recreation can continue to build its program, have access to a gym, have all the things that it has right now. That would be my only concern, to make sure that we could get them a place where they can store their stuff without having to lug it or something like that. That in that interim period while we build.
But do you understand John's point about keeping the recreation facility on the map at this time to find out how the town powers to be feel about that in terms of a community? Only a community, Jim.
Yes, I think I understand. But if we move forward with demolishing everything, then our solution is to find where can we put recreation so that it can continue to grow at this moment in time.
Well, we can
it
say we
has to
have a
be a must.
concern about it,
It
right?
has to be a must in whatever program, whatever three scenarios that we present to the selectmen, in my opinion. That the recreation has to be a must.
Well, you're like John in that sense, so it may I.
Yeah, I
it
mean,
that
if
way?
we were gonna say, yes, recreation will be considered in at minimum one of the three scenarios, then I would say demolish it tomorrow.
Well, maybe that's the motion.
Yeah.
So, I can't answer what Barbara was saying about access during the next 5 years. I'm not prepared to do that, but I had a question, a note, and a suggestion.
Okay,
So the question was, I think general, about the auditorium discussion that may go to the select board is, whether it was envisioned that this would be a private endeavor or whether it would be like a public facility. And I don't know if you have any clarity on that. I think,
No, well,
I-
I would probably say private is
Okay.
based on the conversation.
because I think from the information we have available, we would expect to, if you have the auditorium and the gymnasium side by side, we know what it will cost to renovate both of them together. And it's a big number. I think if you take the auditorium and expand it into the gymnasium, you're talking about a very big number. I think superficially, I think it's safe to say that to renovate that into an auditorium is gonna be hugely expensive. Way more expensive than if they came in and built a brand new theater, purpose-built, kind of like the rec center. So I think just kind of grounding that auditorium discussion in costs and like the reality of a private entity coming in and say, I love this building, I want to renovate it, rather than building something new, I think is a thing. And then the note I have is, I think going to the select board is what we all think is appropriate right now, but I just wonder how much they will actually give for opinions at this early stage.
I don't think we should go. So,
The auditorium, but it's just the idea of where the committee's at. I think it's
Well,
gonna
if
kind of be
you're gonna
bouncing it
renovate,
off
if you're
them.
gonna renovate, it's gonna have a gym and an auditorium at minimum,
Correct.
right?
I'm just a little hesitant. I'm a little concerned that they might say a couple ideas and just say, keep going, keep moving forward. Like, I don't know how much they're gonna grasp it all in a brief presentation and a packed meeting. So I just want to temper how much the committee will get from the select board. This is an opportunity to show them where the committee's at. And they might have some preliminary responses, but I'm not 100% sure that they're gonna
Well,
give
yeah, and
their.
if you,
I
blessing
think
on
we're
what-
better off like saying to the select board, hey, here's what we want to do, and
Right.
them saying, well, we need an auditorium versus going in and asking
Right.
them about the auditorium and not having an answer for
Right.
them.
Yep, and that was my final,
That's my-
that was my suggestion is, and I take some responsibility for the way the memo was set up. But maybe we put a pin in this question because it's a complicated one and go through the other scenarios. Because I think we haven't really talked about the sports facility and how there is a potential for a public-private partnership. And we haven't really talked about any small school. You know, housing is a specific topic, but it's less critical for kind of getting to this gymnasium discussion.
I
So
didn't understand the comment in your agreement in terms of what it is you think would be good to do to go to the selectmen. So I want to hear that again, if I could.
I think we should go with the answer versus asking them the question.
So by saying we think it should be demolished, if we're 4-3, that it's demolished and they want to keep it, they're going to fight for it, or vice versa.
I also think if you modify the motion to say that you demolish it, understanding that the scenarios, at least one or more scenarios needs to take into consideration
That would change.
local,
my-
rec- I think that would change the vote.
because one of the scenarios would be a new recreational building.
Right.
The other scenario would be a public-private partnership. The third scenario would be nothing. And I don't think anyone's gonna go for
Yeah.
that. So it kind of pushes the conversation
Yeah.
back to,
Well, I thought the
Some-
bubble had the recreation in it, did it not?
we have one that has a new recreation building. And we have one that has a sports facility, which was presumed to have a public-private partnership attached to it. I think the discussion I heard from the committee last time was that if the conversation moved forward with a sports facility, that access would be part of the agreement, be part of the expectation. That's what I
Right.
thought I gleaned from
Right.
Yeah.
the conversation with the last one, so.
If I recall in our last meeting, there was a lot of discussion about how we negotiate all of these things into it as well. Whether it's a public, private, whatever the case may be, that all of this is negotiated into whatever scenario we recommend. And if it's imperative that we have some form of recreation, then that has to be negotiated. If I recall that conversation in the meeting.
And
So-
that's somebody else's goal to do that. You know, they're gonna do their own, thing. We're gonna be going away. And
True,
yeah.
but I think if our recommendation makes that, if that's a strong recommendation that, this proposal is, includes you know, a public use for certain things.
Well, I think what John is saying, that if we certainly all agree to that we all understand that we want recreation as part of this site, correct? So,
I mean, I would make a motion, to Kathy's point, I would make a motion to demolish the gym and auditorium, provided that at minimum one of the recommendations has a place for recreation.
I would second
okay, so we're gonna do a roll call on that. Did you, Joe, did you hear that?
Yes.
And would you like to start our roll call vote?
So I want to make sure I understood the question, that we're voting to demolish the gym and the auditorium subject. Well, how was the end of that? Repeat that back for me so I can understand it. The end of it.
Demolish the gym and auditorium provided at minimum one of the three recommendations has a place for recreation.
The recreation
Recreation,
department,
recreation center.
yeah. Sandra?
Facility.
Hmm. Okay, because I don't. I'm concerned that it's a very broad context in the sense of not maintaining a facility. I mean, you're saying just it's going to maintain a recreational program is what you're saying. Someplace else. I'm a little bit confused on what you're asking.
All right, so Casey or Lindsay, do you have any thoughts to clarify any of this?
I vote aye for John's motion.
And Casey?
So I do support John's motion, but my concern is maybe slightly different. And potentially this can quickly be addressed. So in last month's meeting, I raised the concern that some of the design concepts for the regional sports facility and complex were too small to be kind of an economic boon, for the economic development interest of the community, right? Not big enough to have tournaments, not big enough to really be a magnet for sports programs all across Cape Cod and the South Coast. And so when I'm looking at the bubble diagrams, right, the one that's like the largest in terms of sports facilities that I think would support the economic development angle, it's the third one. And the third one there has the renovated gymnasium on still there. So I guess my question would be, if we would demolish the gymnasium, how would it potentially impact the design of this very large facility? Because been hearing a lot in this meeting that the gymnasium does anchor a lot of the design of all these different concepts. So I'm just not seeing another bubble diagram that is inclusive of demolishing the gymnasium, but still maintaining this type of footprint. Does that make sense?
And I wonder if the renovated gymnasium that's shown in this bubble diagram, if it was just retitled, rec center, and, the BSC hasn't calculated the cost, but I think from that 25 million versus 16 million, if it was sort of the same square footage or footprint, that would essentially be new gymnasium or new rec space instead of what is titled there as renovated gymnasium. But I could be wrong. That was just
the difference in square footage is that renovated is around 35,000. Yeah, 35,000 square feet. The one on number 5 or 4 or wherever it was up to 20,000 square feet, which would be that single family, not single family, the single level
Recreation. Center.
recreation center with blended lines and 2 practice courts. That footnote.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's 20,000, right? Square feet?
Correct.
So I think this scenario 3 is very similar to another scenario, what is it? 6, but without the,
Well, the
right,
sixth
but with
is-
housing along Chickadee Lane.
I thought we were looking at 6, we're not.
No, that was 3 that he was looking at. I think this scenario is very similar, just has the Chickadee Lane, and if you didn't have the Chickadee Lane units there, you could have that additional housing, and then this shows this public-private partnership for the town recreation without having it be a separate structure. Do you think our town recreation needs to be a separate structure from the sports complex if we can negotiate a deal when we go out with the RFP?
I guess she's asking you, Casey.
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't think so. I think that would be negotiable. But just trying to compare apples to apples between 3 and 6, right? If presumably that gymnasium would be able to be used for sports, either for recreation or for other purposes. And it just seems like there's a lot more accessibility. You have all the ball fields as well, for baseball tournaments and little league and whatnot. You don't have any of that on this one. So, I mean, I will say I'm certainly not against demolition. I am just raising this as an issue. And if you were to force a vote, I will vote one way or another. I just think it is something to be addressed because I know the economic development angle to this is really, really important. And I think a lot of these design concepts are looking pretty small to be a magnet for big events that would draw visitors here.
I guess my only comment on this one, it has to do with phasing, because you're not going to be able to have a sports complex come in with all of these fields until Emmy Small is addressed. If you go to option 5, scenario 5, this is kind of moving it around, where you have the sports facility happening earlier rather than later, understanding that the solar would have to go. Maybe you could even get in a 4th field on the right there if we go a little bit more into the woods or something along those lines, trying to get that larger number. But again, that's something you could carve off that site right now and start talking about disposing of it and trying to get people interested in the sports complex.
I think this is a good discussion. I think that some of the questions cannot be answered at this stage. So what Casey was saying is similar to the rec. So like the town recreation needs to be accommodated in at least one of these. And if we're talking about a regional sports facility, it has to be large enough to actually meet the needs of a regional sports facility operator. Because originally these were just going to be bubbles with nothing inside, and so now there are bubbles with just sample fit tests, and we won't really know until we really get in there to draw things what is actually feasible to fit. But I think the idea of removing the gym in this case, this is scenario 5. I think it allows the flexibility of design to happen. In the previous one that we were looking at, keeping the gym in, first, I think it's going to have parking around it. It's going to conflict with that. It's going to conflict. Plus, if I go back to 3, I would be, I guess, professionally speaking, I would be hesitant with 3 to show a regional sports facility and renovated gymnasium, because now we're talking about the town investing $25 million in that gymnasium, and there's a private investor spending money to build the sports facility. It's really duplicative, I think, at this level, kind of looking at that drawing.
But just,
No, I was just gonna say, Casey made me think of this. Clearly, if a sports facility goes in there, a lot of kids are gonna participate in the sports facility and may not participate in recreation events, activities. The thought just occurred to me as he was talking that, just as a point of note.
I guess my question is, so we voted, we agreed that you could, like, we could post the bubbles, right?
Mhm.
But now if we vote that we're gonna demolish the gymnasium auditorium, doesn't the renovated gymnasium block need to come out of every bubble?
No, I think the bubbles are just reference documents that have been used and discussed along the way. I think that's the purpose of them, is if they've informed you all as a committee, and they should, we want to like at least show what
Okay.
was the basis for these conversations moving forward, because eventually we're gonna draw 3 concept plans, which are gonna pull from these various pieces of the bubble diagram, so we want them to exist.
Gotcha.
So where are we? In terms of what you'd like to do? We do have a vote, I'm sorry, a motion, and a second. And would you be able to read what the motion is?
To demolish the gym and the auditorium, provided at a minimum one of the 3 scenarios as a place for a town recreation facility or town recreation.
So we'll take a vote. Lindsay I'm sorry, Joe, your vote is no or yes?
Oh, I was just listening to the discussion. I was just trying to get in my mind, if this gym is demolished, it would be replaced at some point with a recreational complex. So that was, I guess, what was my first. So I guess what you're saying is that when it's replaced, there will be the recreational department will have to work with the new manager, if there's going to be a new manager of this place, to have their programs adequately addressed in this new facility. Am I correct in saying that?
I think what would happen is that the town will put out an RFP, and as part of that, we would say that we want a certain amount of guaranteed gym time for our community, and then you get,
All right, so that okay, I understand that. I didn't know we were down the road that far already. Deciding whether or not we're going to keep it in-house or go out in RFP. That's where I guess I got a little bit confused here.
For a sports complex, we would do an RFP, but for our town recreation, obviously, we would keep that in.
Okay, I understand now. All right, so I'll vote aye for that.
Aye, did you say?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Lindsay
Yes.
and Casey
Aye.
and Andrew
Yes.
and John
Aye.
and Barbara,
Yes.
and I'll make it unanimous. So we keep moving, Jeff.
Oh, that's great. That's fascinating, and it's a complex thing. So kind of moving on helps. It is all similar types of discussion. It's all going to kind of feed into each other at this point. But item number 3 was just a notation about the idea of a new town rec facility, which we talked about a lot already. We have a cost outlined in the Catalyst report. So potentially one of these scenarios that incorporates rec would be a town-owned building. We have a rough size, 18,500 square feet, could be the concept, 17 million. The location allows flexibility. We've covered that in the bubble diagram, so that's a benefit of this scenario. We do know and understand that this is on page 4, right at the bottom, the capital improvement plan and priorities. So this is where moving forward at this stage to the select board would just be to let them know that this idea exists, but it's a capital investment, and at least this committee has acknowledged that there is the existing town building maintenance documentation available. There's the discussion of a library, there's discussion of MA Small, and then kind of lumped in is just these investments around the wastewater system. So those are factors in the idea of a new rec facility. So this is the note here is make a recommendation whether a new recreation building be included in one of the 3 concept site plans. And I honestly think that you all just said that.
Right.
I think that's the result of kind of allowing the demolition. One of these is going to have a new rec building and probably some town facilities. So I think that's pretty clear. I don't know if
Should vote
the
on
Well,
we should vote on that, but
Yeah, it's only presented to the selectmen, and what we hear back may change something or may not.
I would do a vote, just to be clear.
Oh, I thought, you think.
I think we know what the answers are gonna
I
be,
think
but we
it's
should
good-
do the
I think
vote.
It's good to just have it, I think at this.
Based on the information provided to date, Muck is advised to make a recommendation with a new recreation building be included in one of the 3 conceptual site plans. Are you talking about community recreation building again, or are you talking about a new sports facility?
In this one, it would be
Community.
the community building, so it's kind of best represented in
4.
bubble diagram 4, one of the newer ones, and so. You know, the idea is that many voted to demolish the existing gymnasium, but one of the scenarios that is required, kind of as based on that, is probably with ME Small, you know, coupled with a new school and the new town rec building with rec fields in the back.
So you're
Right.
talking about the 20,000 square foot?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
It sounds like what we just did. Does it not to you, John?
Yeah, I mean,
It could have been public-private partnership. This is
Right.
saying you want to include an actual independent town recreation facility in one of the 3 scenarios.
And I think the next, just to
Yeah.
preview, the next discussion is about the sports
Yeah.
facility, and I think that's gonna be involved with the public-private partnership.
Okay.
discussion too.
I mean, I'll make a motion that one of the 3 recommendations has a town-owned recreation building in it.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second that.
Andrew, a second. A roll call vote. Let me start with Lindsay first today.
I,
And Joe,
Aye,
Casey, Andrew, you seconded.
Aye.
John
Aye.
and Barbara
Yes,
and Sharon, yes. All right.
You're doing good. Keep going.
Yep. If I may, make a suggestion to briefly skip housing and move to number 5. Just because we've been talking a lot about the interaction that of your first vote, maybe the second vote. But maybe we can briefly talk about this and go back to housing, because housing it shows up on all of them, but. The information that we're providing here for the regional sports facility. It was included in economic development land use team. It was included in the recreational land use team. It was discussed at the community meeting, and it came forward in the letter in the presentation at your last meeting. So the size and scale, gleaned on, based on all that information, we're talking about, you know, approximately 120,000 square foot building, and that would be for indoor activities. And then there's a range of options for exterior fields, and that's what something that Casey was saying is we just don't know exactly yet how big it has to be to meet that demand, but that's kind of the process moving forward to examine. The second item here is public-private partnership, which has come up. Really strong emphasis has been placed on the potential for that. There's multiple layers, but Muck has identified the potential for the partnership to include an agreement whereby access to certain facilities and spaces would be available to the town recreation department. The concept requires additional details and consideration, but would provide the town with an opportunity to meet some of the recreation demands at a lower cost. Since the development of both indoor and outdoor facilities would be the responsibility of the developer. Potential impacts, you know, we're really just trying to acknowledge that people have raised concerns about all of these, and a lot of these would get reviewed in more detail as site plans get prepared, and then once there's movement towards any particular direction, things like lighting, traffic, water supply, proximity to resource areas, septic and sewer, they're all really important. It's just going to be at a little bit later stage where we start to really examine those once there's consensus moving forward. Then the recreational fields analysis is out there, and it's important. But it's not finalized yet. So we're just trying to highlight that there has been some discussion about splitting the town rec fields between Mattacheese and another location. There's been the public-private partnership discussion, and there is an outstanding question about the new school. If it is located here, whether it would have its own fields, and maybe that's shareable. So there's definitely some complexity still with this. But we're going for that higher level direction so that we can work on site plans. So here, based on the information provided today, Muck is asked to recommend that that the concept of a regional sports facility be included in one or more of the conceptual site plans, which it sounds like the committee would be agreeable to based on the discussion so far.
So just to be clear, I went and dug out my economic development final plan, and the moderate and the elevated have one of the square footages is the elevated is 100 to 200,000 square feet. That's what's in the plan. The reason 120 came up was because of the Cape Cod Chamber conversation that occurred in terms of picking up what was expressed earlier in a meeting with the town administrator, I believe. And that was that they would be happy with 90 to 120. I'm just telling you what I've heard, whether it's accurate, moving forward, because I've heard things that haven't turned out to be accurate. But so I went with, in my mind, why not go with the bigger, the 120, to give you more ability to do whatever you wish to do. And they're going to decide what they're going to put in there, and they're going to decide what's a moneymaker. And so again, in terms of Casey's concern, I am open to even more if in fact that's something that the town wishes to take on, keeping in mind the mitigation of neighbors. Because that's sort of why I took splitting the fields as a suggestion, so that it doesn't appear that this huge thing is coming down next to them, kind of like a out of space machine dropping down on the yard that is going to cause all number of issues, traffic and lots of people. So I just am saying that because now we're going to go, and the question becomes, based on that information, Muck is advised to recommend that the concept of a regional sports facility be included in one or more of the recreational site plans. So that's a pretty simple one, I believe, for all of us. Is that correct? Lindsay, are you all in favor of that particular comment? Based on the information provided, Muck is advised to recommend that the concept, and somebody would make that motion, right?
I can make that motion.
Before there's a motion, can I just add something to
Sure,
support
yep.
the conversation? I can't access it because I'm sharing my screen, but in the economic development report, I think there were 4 benchmark examples. And we heard from the last meeting, they called out 2 of those specifically in the last meeting. And what we did is we looked at those benchmark examples, and I think that they were all around the 2 benchmarks that were mentioned at the last meeting were at about 120,000 square feet. So I think there's a secondary way to frame why we're sticking with that 120,000 square foot building for now.
Was that Pembroke? And
yeah, I was hesitant to say which ones. I think one was
Pembroke.
because one of them was really large, and I just don't want to say the wrong one. But we feel pretty good that based on those benchmarks that the building size would be comparable. We're not quite sure about the fields and like what would make that competitive for the exterior stuff, but we'll work on that. But I do think that the building size was also referencing the 2 specific benchmarks. So I just wanted to mention them.
Thanks. So Lindsay, you want to make the motion?
Sure. I motion to approve that some amount of a regional sports facility be included in one or more of the conceptual site plans.
Thank you. Is there a second, Casey or Joe?
I'll second.
Second.
All right, Casey's got that as a second. And then any other discussion? And so I'll take a roll call, and I'll start with you, Lindsay.
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Casey?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
I want to call you something else. I don't know why.
Aye.
Yes.
And Barbara and Sharon, yes.
Great. And then if I may also make the suggestion, go back to housing at this point.
Yes,
just
yeah,
so-
oh,
everyone
absolutely.
gets
I'm
late.
fine with that. Yep.
So housing, it's on page 5. Using a portion of Mattacheese site was identified as a high priority based on the housing land use team report. It came through the community meeting. And it was input from the community housing committee. So as shown in the bubble diagrams, the site can support housing in multiple locations. Additionally, the site is large enough to support inclusion of housing among other uses. So that was pretty well documented and clear moving through this process. The number of units right now is based on data collected by the housing land use team. And it's expected to include a potential for 60 or more units over an approximately 6 to 8 acre portion of the property. We're anticipating that there could be a potential for single family dwellings along Chickadee Lane. So that was pretty well talked about in the bubble diagrams. Several discussions have come up about the preferred location for housing. So one was about the wooded area at the front of the property and trying to preserve as much of that as possible. But it could be conducive to new uses. So we show the bubble diagrams, maybe considering a small portion of that. The location of housing, the community housing committee identified a suitable location where the Mattacheese buildings are. And we've shown a couple bubble diagrams of that. And then we also are recommending just consideration of moving the housing to, generally where any small is. And that could allow for some future discussions of phasing. And that's important. Then the size and type of housing. So, this is a discussion, but Muck recommends that the conceptual site plans include housing that is consistent with the report's moderate program. And that talked about approximately 62 mixed income units. And it doesn't actually say, so this is something to clarify in the memo, is it doesn't say 3 buildings. It does say multiple buildings, but it's not specifically 3. So we do want to clarify that. And then that concept had 12 single family homes, be it for employees or, the model of Habitat for Humanity homes, affordable homes. We are making a statement that it's a little premature to reduce the number of units below that threshold, but I think maybe that's a discussion. Inclusion of single family homes along Chickadee could blend with that street, and it may also offer an opportunity to sell those lots and provide the revenue to the town for some version of either some improvements on this site or
Comment about
Yes.
that.
Okay.
I think the concept was to generate revenue for not more affordable units or more housing units, but for the recreational piece, the town recreation.
okay.
Do you know what I mean? So.
Where
we've
are
got-
you?
The very last
on the
sentence.
five,
Last
It
sentence.
says comment including more affordable units. But I think the idea, Sharon, correct me if I'm wrong, was to sell those and to have them go towards these other costs on the site. That we have money for affordable housing, right? We don't need to sell the lots for affordable housing. You could use that money. Hopefully the treasurer would allow us to do this for something else on the site.
To be quite frank, I hope they do something totally out of the box. And my out of the box for that would be that they own it themselves. They own the single families themselves, because you've indicated that in your housing issue that you can say it's Yarmouth tenants that come in initially, but once they move out, that's no longer secured. And the only way for the town to is if they own it, and they should see why people that own real estate get wealthy. But they all should see why they have to pay taxes and to the general fund. I mean, I have this whole scenario where I would love it to happen, but it's probably not going to
I
happen
think
because
those
they're.
lots could go someplace else on the site. I'm talking about the Chickadee lots.
I'm only talking about the Chickadee
Okay.
lots. I'm only talking about the Chickadee lots, but I mentioned that they could sell them
Yeah.
and generate income. That's not,
Yeah.
they may do that. I'm just saying, I wish people about the housing problem that we have on the Cape, which is why I included the housing thing from the Cape Cod Commission in terms of our status in Yarmouth. you know, how we stand. But the housing issue is one that needs some different kind of thinking. And to me, it would be, they need to keep owning it, they need to hire somebody, build it, pay back, you know, the general fund, the money, once they get the rental coming in, but they can choose the new employees that come to town.
That's what I
And
thought
put
it was
them
gonna
in.
be, was related to maybe that municipal employee housing.
The chickadee law?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know that they're.
No,
I don't know
it's
that they
all
can do
options.
it.
No decisions have been made. It's just ideas that have been expressed.
Yeah. But I don't know that they can do it, but you know, they talk themselves into it that they can't do it, as opposed to be creative and just figure it out and do it. You know, it's hard for municipals, you know, it's much easier for private enterprise, but.
So the vote on this is to say that some type of housing is involved is included in every scenario.
Every scenario, yeah. And just one other fine point, the last bullet that's on the top of page 6 is about sewer infrastructure. There's no one to get lost, is that, you know, including, there's a benefit of including housing in all the scenarios, and especially, you know, and our take on this is especially affordable housing. There is a sort of a number, magic number, so to speak, of about 40 units, where you start to open up the opportunities for the town to get infrastructure grants to support the development of affordable housing out here. So it's going to, well, I think the expectation is that sewer should be extended here. And if there's an opportunity to use affordable housing as the opportunity to get the money to help bring the sewer out, it's really important just to have that as a factor in the housing. So it's not just one problem that's solved, which is provide additional housing. It's also potentially benefit to bring the sewer out to this location. I just didn't want to lose that as part of the housing
Right,
discussion.
and the other information, I listened to the select board meeting this past Tuesday. And they talked about Bill's grant to the, I forget which particular Mass Development was approved for 225,000. So he got for the town for implementation process they get nearer. And I think Heather was involved with helping write some of these grants, or one of the grants, or.
There's two scopes that were included. One was from a BSC group, and then one was from Camoin, for more the marketing part.
Yeah. So congrats, you know, to that process that you have helped in. The other thing, I wanted to make sure I just go to just to let you know, again, as your representative, I went to a water resource committee meeting, and brought up the issue that presently this location is in decade 5. And it would be nice if they could be reconsidered for 2 in order to design and implement using these grants to help with the money in phase 2 and bring it down to Buck Island. So we at least went and said something. So
Yeah. They're looking at that.
yeah.
I just had a quick comment for the top of 6. I've always been kind of told it's not 40 units, but it's 60.
Do you have a source for the 40? Is it some grants that have been issued?
It's not something that's like in writing as a guidance document. It's something, I mean, and we could create a range, I
Yeah.
think, for now, or if we can figure out how to position that, I think that'd be great. I think the number that I guess I positioned there was, maybe it was Western Mass specific, but that has been indication for, you know, affordable housing projects in Western Mass, is that target number was 40, but
The
it may
40 affordable units or
Yes.
40 units total?
no, 40 affordable units.
See,
In
that's-
order to,
Oh, you could
Different.
put that affordable
Yeah,
unit,
that's
that word
different.
affordable.
Yeah.
In there.
especially affordable housing units with at least 4, especially affordable housing with at least 40 units. I tried to.
Especially housing. It's just this would be mixed income in some way. So if you're saying you need a minimum of 40 capital A units, then for mixed income, it's going to be more than that.
And it might be, yes.
And I think you would
But I
25 to
think that you should
50%.
put
Yeah.
40 affordable units. Just put that word in. Because
But you are taking out including more affordable units at the bottom. You're taking that sentence out, I hope.
on page 5, I would strike that.
Yeah.
Yes,
And-
the sentence on page 5, yes, yeah, we're gonna correct
On
that.
the site, or other possibilities such as ADUs was also mentioned in terms of those units.
I see the way it's written, but I think Adding
Be pretty
affordable
clear.
units,
Yep,
yeah.
Yeah.
Fine.
And then I would say at least 40 affordable,
Correct, yep, I
Yeah.
think that,
And you were
And then-
recommending 25 to 50% affordable in your.
25%.
Okay.
But that would, anyways,
That's gonna be
good
high,
information to know.
Mhm.
But is that something we can recommend something higher than 25%? Not 25%, not to take away 25%.
I think
But I
because
mean-
we own the properties, we can ask for a mix of income, like Kathy said, some of it being affordable, capital A, affordable, some of it being workforce.
Yes.
Right?
You
Yeah.
say in your recommendation, 25 to 50% affordable.
yeah, and I think we should probably not overemphasize it at this point, but
Yeah.
I think the point was. With affordable housing on the site, it really increases the chances of being able to get a grant for sewer, so.
So can we just say or market rent? I mean, is that also part of this?
Oh, you're definitely gonna have.
This is
market
including
rate.
housing at the site, especially affordable housing of at least 4 affordable units. You're just emphasizing that to promote getting sewer money, you need 40
Yeah,
affordable.
and I guess, based on where we're at, I would propose that for this purpose that we're at right now is maybe not mention the number of units, but just say, including affordable units for now, because I don't think we want to get anchored into a specific number. So I think that's just a little, so it's just emphasizing that having some affordable housing is going to be essential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think at this point, because I don't think we have enough information to actually pin that 40 number
Sure,
down.
right.
Okay.
So,
Sounds good.
sorry about that.
That's okay.
No, that was great. Thank you.
So based on that, did you want to
So the
have
other
any
fine-
conversation
the
about
fine
the
detail
housing?
here is the moderate in that note, the moderate in quotes, is in the housing land use team, and that has 60, it's about 60 units.
62 rental units
Correct.
and 6 affordable homes and 6 municipal employee rental.
So,
units.
the target
And
is so
12,
that we can get guidance
No.
as to what we put
Not the
on the
moderate.
concept drawing. And that's really what we're trying to get guidance. And we're just anchoring it with that memo, which exists and has some good detail to it.
Right.
That's good.
Any questions or comments about the housing part? Is everyone okay that it's in every scenario?
I'm actually gonna vote no on that.
And you don't want sewer to come that way?
Has nothing to do with sewer. I don't think we should hamstring ourselves by having to include it. I think we're missing an opportunity. I asked for it last meeting and was shot down about a bubble that's all sports facility.
Uh-huh.
I think it's, we need to be realistic here, to Lindsay's point, of everyone has these asks and demands and everything, but who's paying for it? And to Casey's point, I think, we need more space for a sports facility. So
Okay.
it's not that I would vote to have housing or not. It's a separate issue that I think we're hamstringing ourselves by requiring it in every scenario.
So with the exception of the school, the only thing you would want to see on the site is sports.
One option.
One option is, yeah, that's what I asked for last meeting. but
Yeah.
Was shot down, so.
Was that a vote on that or was that, I don't recall.
No,
No, I answered. I was surprised that if somebody wanted a single. But everybody has a right to their opinion.
I think there should be housing along Chickadee, that street, just as a buffer. So I would probably be in favor of having a scenario where housing is included.
Mhm. Oh, she went there, she not. So, I would need a motion for Jeff's, purposes. Muck is advised to make a recommendation as to whether a new recreation building, what am I reading? Wrong one. Muck is
Slate.
advised to recommend that housing of some sort be included in all 3 conceptual site plans. Additionally, Muck has been encouraged by the Housing Committee to make a recommendation that the housing density reflected on the site plans be the moderate option identified by the housing land use team. Could I have a motion? I'll make the motion. Will there be a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Who seconded?
Casey,
Thank you.
So, obviously we need some discussion. So John has expressed himself that he thinks at least one of the scenarios that we're talking about should be all recreation.
No,
But we've,
no, all sports.
sports,
No,
no?
that's not what I said.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I said, I don't think we should hamstring ourselves by requiring that every recommendation has housing.
Oh,
Separately, I think we should have a scenario that is all sports, private, public sports
okay,
complex.
all right.
But for the sake of this vote, what I'm saying is I don't think we should
You'll vote against it.
mandate that something, whether it's housing or anything else, should be required in all three recommendations.
Okay. So, John, you would say
I
no,
am a nay.
and Andrew,
Aye.
Barbara?
I'm gonna go to, no.
Okay, Joe,
No,
Casey,
Aye.
Lindsay.
I guess I would amend it. I don't know if that's like I vote no because my suggestion would be some housing be included, but I don't know that I would say the density be the moderate option. So I wonder if I don't know how that works. That's a Kathy question. And also, I didn't hear Barbara's response, so I don't, Kathy, you have my back, so I'm sure you
Ye-
are making note of.
I guess the question, it sounds like you would like to amend it
To remove
to remove the last sentence. It has been encouraged by the CAC to make recommendations that the housing density reflected on the site plans be the moderate.
Yes, my vote would be to amend it and just include some amount of housing, but not necessarily determine which version as of yet.
So you're interested in including some sort of housing in all three? I'm just wondering whether it's not amend the motion to be recommend that housing of some sort be included in all three conceptual site plans, and then whether you, and not say anything else about it. Stop it there.
That would be my suggestion, yeah.
All right, so is there a second to Lindsay's amendment?
I'll second that.
All right, so now we're voting for the amendment. And does everyone understand the amendment?
Can I pause here? We did set a vote. So the vote that we just take
Didn't,
is not.
wasn't
Is
concluded.
not accepted. Because it was amended in terms of the statement.
Before the completion of the vote, it was amended.
Okay, can you read the motion to me?
The motion is to amend the motion to recommend that housing of some sort be included in all three conceptual site plans, period.
So the essence of that is that if we offer three plans, one of them could be solely a sports facility environment.
No, that's not what it is, and that's why he's voting no against it.
Okay,
When we're saying all three concept site plans would include some sort of housing, he's saying he would like to see one option that was all sports complex, which I think is an interesting. No,
What I'm saying for the purpose of this, the housing motion, is that we are not required to have housing in all three scenarios that we recommend to the select board.
do you want to amend it then to say in two of the a minimum of two of the concepts site plans? Or
Can I
Yeah.
just,
Well-
it's a question that won't answer it, but it's just another question. So I appreciate the discussion and there's a sense of urgency, obviously, to this vote, but we're just trying to get direction as to, because we are about to draw, like, it's a more labor intensive exercise to draw site plans.
Mhm.
So just remember that the goal here is to give us guidance as to what to draw on three of the site plans. So if I may just say something, and I don't know if it's gonna actually make sense, because I'm really on the spot thinking about this, but something that Kathy just said would be helpful is, we're trying to help illustrate to not just Muck and the select board, but the community, what this might look like and what fits and how it would take shape on the property. So maybe there's a middle ground somewhere, which is we really think that at least one of these drawings should show the moderate, because we don't know exactly, like there was a diagram included in the memo, but we would all, I think, benefit from having at least one that shows what a moderate level of housing would look like. It opens up opportunities for the others, but and maybe there's the other, we don't exactly know what the other one would be. So we kind of go off on our own to figure that out. But that's our goal with these votes, is to get clarity on which 3 drawings we should do.
Correct.
So if that's helpful in any way, I think maybe this note in the suggested vote was we anticipated it, but maybe there's a way to split the difference so that we can get guidance on
I
some things
guess
to draw.
to clarify this, so that I understand what we're voting on, we're gonna make 3 suggestions to the select board. And of those 3 selections, recommendations, one of them would simply be a sports facility only. That's it. No,
We
no
haven't,
housing.
We
we
gotten
haven't
that
decided
far.
that. We haven't gotten
If
that
you,
far.
I would
You-
vote yes it's just, we need to be, in my opinion, we need to be consistent, right? So we said at least one recommendation with recreation. I would vote yes if you said at least one recommendation with housing. Like, again, I'm not saying that I would vote no against anything with housing. I'm just saying we're limiting ourselves to recommendations if we require anything to be on all 3 recommendations. That's my.
Do your
But-
concept plans go to the select board on the 4th?
No,
No, okay. We
no.
would want to know from the select board if they would even consider something without housing.
So you're saying that there's no other similar vote, right? There wasn't a similar vote that all 3 had to have the school on,
Correct.
that
It
all
wasn't
3 had
all
to
had
have a sports
recreation, that
facility.
all 3 had to have this.
And then you finding yourself in a situation where the housing has a different kind of question.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if I may, it was because of the reason why it got framed that way was because there seemed to be very strong emphasis on housing. That from the initial.
Yes, and
gleaning of all
I
the- so that's why.
totally understand that.
That's why the initial kind of suggestion was that in housing has been on every bubble diagram that we've drawn. So it was just to kind of like solidify that. But I
Well,
can
the only
sense
thing that
this is a good
was
discussion.
restricted was the house, the school. Because the town didn't want to tie itself up with 2 separate things of schools, so it got reduced to the one flipped over on the whatever. So that's when Bill talked with the superintendent, all they agreed upon was 1 school on 1 scenario. That's all he agreed to. That's all he wanted to agree to, is that there'd be 6 to 8 acres carved out on this site in case we need to, and we decide that this is where we're going to want to build the new school. So that is a unique kind of thing, and it's, and then I'm kind of mystified that we can have sports on every scenario that we're doing, but we can't have housing on it
We didn't have a vote for sports.
because they're all there. They're on in everything. So it doesn't bother everybody else that there's sports on every scenario, right?
There is one,
Have a vote.
there is one,
And
there
I
is
say
one,
no to that as well.
there's one slight variation.
Well,
which
I'm not gonna make the vote. I've got 2 votes out here right now. So,
just to be clear on the sports, those, I think it's obviously really important.
right,
One of them was town recreational facility.
right.
So it was town owned, town funded, and town managed. And then there were 2 that had the private, sort of the regional sports facility model. So it's not all 3 are directly the same sports model, so to speak. I just want to make sure that was clear. It's just,
Right,
I think it's splitting hairs probably at this point, but it
yeah,
is
that is.
town owned versus a
Inside.
regional entity, yeah, in size.
So we have 2 motions on the floor, and I'm trying to remember
Oh,
them, but the
Madam-
first one is the amendment. And we were in the process of taking a roll call, I believe, on the amendment.
Can I ask people to withdraw their motions so that we can start with a clear?
I'd be
Sure.
happy to withdraw.
And
Second.
Karen, withdraw yours.
Yeah, and we need to withdraw the seconds too. And that was Joe on one and
Andrew on the other.
Casey on the other, wasn't it?
Casey seconded in it.
Yeah,
On the-
so we need his withdraw.
I was wrong.
Casey? Yeah. So I think everyone's withdrawn. So now what do you want to do?
I have no idea. It's getting so late. I'm getting blurry eyed.
No, I think that there's something, it doesn't have to be unanimous, right? And this is just to kind of get the guidance,
Right,
the idea of this housing discussion happening now, it would also be the opportunity to bounce it off the select board, to talk to them about how.
right.
I would just make the motion that Lindsay had.
Which one? Well, we're not making it, but could you tell me what? Linda
Yes,
made?
motion to include. I'm sorry, motion to recommend that housing of some sort be included in all 3 conceptual site plans.
Right. And I think what would be really helpful for us, if the committee would be willing to entertain it, is that at least one of them have moderate. Because otherwise, I think we're going to bring forward concept plans that I guess we are going to arbitrarily make a decision as to what gets shown. And that's the guidance that I'm hoping to get from the committee. So
Well, we can take a
Let them go through that
vote.
Motion first and then bring that up.
Yeah, I think we'll do that. So at least we have a consensus about something, and then it may be your
Fine.
thing to decide, or it may be our thing to decide. So, Lindsay, would you like to make that motion again?
Sure, I move that we recommend that housing of some sort be included in all 3 conceptual site plans, period.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second for Andrew. Now can we have a roll call? Lindsay, I'll start with you.
I,
Joe,
Aye.
Casey,
Aye.
John,
Nay.
Andrew,
Aye.
Barbara.
No,
Okay, and Sharon, yes. So now to help out Jeff in the BSC group who is trying to do these bubbles, I have no problem with what was the approval that we have at least some housing?
Some
Okay,
sort.
of housing. Okay,
I wonder if I may, Madam Chair, if for guidance for BSC to do the drawings, if yes, most certainly one, include the moderate option that you suggest, Jeff, but also to lean more towards the, I guess, combination of John and Andrew's commentary of, it won't be a full sports facility, but maybe at minimum, there are houses that border Chickadee, so they're like allows for some housing, and it is a kind of border in between, if that makes sense. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I like that.
and so then what
I'm unclear
happens-
on what that is.
Well, I didn't mean that to be, it wasn't a motion, it was just a comment.
Right.
Yeah, it was just me saying like, make one that's moderate, and then if we want to, accommodate for the people who were not looking for necessarily all housing, housing to be included on all of the options, that you present one that would be a more minimal housing option, but includes the housing. I don't know. I'll be quiet.
Well, I like that because the Chickadee owners maybe it's the north side. It's residential. If you do that on the Mattacheese side, you have a buffer and it looks like a neighborhood. But if you don't have that, it's just another, like a commercial butting up against it.
I mean, I see both perspectives and I think housing is important, but if we're gonna present some ideas, I guess I would agree with John. I don't wanna be hamstrung knowing that if this is what we're gonna propose, a regional sports facility, then that should be what we propose, or suggest as one of our ideas. And another idea could be a smaller version of a sports facility with housing. So, and ultimately, the select board is going to make that decision as to what's gonna go on that piece of land. And, but to say from the get-go that you have to, kind of says, well, what's the point of having a recommendation if we're gonna have to do, put a playground on every corner. You know, so that was kind of where I saw his point.
Well, I just think there's such a need for housing in this town that every scenario should have a moderate in there. I don't think that should be, and I would be very surprised if the people on the Board of Selectmen think anything less. But I could be surprised. So I guess I would not vote for something less. So I guess we need to go back and take a look at the three scenarios real quickly. And are we talking about the new scenarios or the old scenarios? Do you want to?
I think starting with the three newer ones is a little bit easier just because they're
Right.
just a little bit more refined.
Right.
So
Okay.
this is number 6.
Well, let's start with, okay.
Let's start with 4. We can
Four,
start with-
yeah, let's start with 4 because that's simpler. It's got the school in it. So this is the option
Doesn't
that,
have a sports complex in it though.
yeah, well, they have a sports complex in all of these. Just like they should with housing. I mean,
And I think we have to have one with the school. It was kind of dictated from the beginning.
right,
There isn't, if you don't mind, so this one with the school is matched with a town-owned recreational facility, which is intended to be smaller scale. So this is not the regional, it's not a revenue generator, and it's presumed to be less traffic and less people visiting. We did have a general observation that presenting a school with a regional sports facility could be too much. It could be too much, in terms of visitation, lighting, and just traffic. So this scenario seems like it's pretty anchored at something that could be conceptualized. It's kind of really moving from here. What does the committee do next after this one?
okay, so 4 is acceptable because you see moderate being in this particular one, if the school. So is this the one moderate that Lindsay was talking about?
I think it serves our purpose. We just want to help. We just want to be able to help by illustrating what a moderate design layout might look like.
Right, so we're gonna leave this one the way it is.
Pretty much, yes, essentially like
Like
this.
that, okay, so now we're gonna go to 5. So now you want to take out the housing block. And what do you want to do there? Leave it empty or, make the 120,000 square foot facility bigger? Or do you want to add more fields? Or what else do you want to add? If you're taking away the housing with 6 to 8 acres. What is it that you want to add to make this great? A great scenario, just that, so it's empty land and we'll just keep it that way?
I thought it was to make it a sports complex and add more fields.
Well, you're talking about taking out this.
Yeah.
Moderate housing.
Yeah, the chunk, the big one.
And it would need more fields and,
Correct.
or another facility, whether that be another gym or indoor soccer, whatever the case may be.
It would look a little bit more like scenario 3.
Right.
Knowing that scenario 3 still has housing and it had the gym, but you would potentially add in at least one more multi-use field. You could add in at least a larger softball field. So those are the two things so the larger ball field and
We're in 5, right? Now,
I'm floating between 3, which was an earlier one, and 5.
I think if you took, now that you're required to have the housing, I think if you took 3, and I think Andrew's, from my perspective, Andrew's point about Chickadee Lane is a good one as a buffer, right? That.
So the housing would be along Chickadee, and
Chickadee
then
and
the rest of the site would be.
Again, that's my humble opinion.
so you're taking out the housing. No, I'm sorry. Is this 5 or 6 or 3? What are we talking about here?
I think it's 5.
Okay, 5. Okay, so we're taking out the housing, which is now the school right at the moment. And we are putting fields there.
I think that would,
Okay.
generally speaking, yeah, and the Chickadee housing lots would stay because that at least accommodates the first vote to have housing of some sort in every plan, it would certainly show like the full range of possibilities for sports complex. Again, we don't really know what is actually hoped for or necessary, but we would use most of that space for that. We could enlarge buffers, and this is where the conceptual design plans would come in, and so there would be probably increased buffers. But it would also offer more space for fields. And so just my point was, if you look at 5 and you compare it to 3, the thing that got cut is a large ball field and 1 multi-use field. So at a minimum, we would add a larger ball field into 5, and we would add another multi-use field, at least to round it out. And
I
maybe
think you
there's-
could add a multi-use field right now to 5 in that wooded area. I just wonder whether you couldn't accommodate more in 5, scenario 5.
So
Possibly enlarge the sports facility.
what's that?
Yeah, I just think that you probably have another field here. You know, could maybe even move this up a little bit because this all is buildable now that you're getting rid of all of that. Again, it's in the details of
sure,
when
yeah.
these guys start seeing what will fit
Setback.
better, right? And who knows, maybe ball fields don't make any sense. You know, baseball fields, maybe you want to have, maybe it's a 6-field soccer complex, you know, we don't know. The idea is just showing kind of what you can do. When we go for an RFP, we would like be leveling out, this is the area which you can develop. You can develop in this envelope, and that's it. And we're just trying to say, well, what do we think we could get out of that? And they would end up deciding what they could do. We would just set the parameters.
I'm wondering if it's helpful just to recap our project. So we're tasked with coming up with 3 conceptual design plans. So they're going to be detailed. They're going to have preliminary cost estimates, order of magnitude. And then we will draw those. We come back to Muck in December. We go to the community in January with the 3. And then we have February to make refinements. And then in March, we collectively, Muck presents the 3 to the select board. Then, as was alluded to, the idea is that you would take 3 and you would still have another step later, which is to kind of push towards 1. So the idea of hamstrung, I think, is kind of temporary, where we're just trying to contain the amount that goes into the 3 drawings. They get presented to the community, they go to the select board, and then there will be a subsequent process because you can't really go out to RFP for 3 like very different options. You would really still take that next step to 1. So I just wanted to say that and maybe it offers some level of comfort that the level of being hamstrung is relatively limited. And maybe there's 3 options and there's clarity coming out of those 3, like which one actually is going to be the most preferred with more information and data. So I don't know if that's helpful, but I did want to just recap that we're going to bring 3 to full concepts, and then there is a subsequent decision after that as to which one might be the most beneficial to move forward.
Well, I'm not sure that helps us right at the moment,
Fair.
yeah, but it was a nice attempt.
I don't think it's wrong getting input from the select board on the level of housing they're looking to see. And then also on the size of a sports complex that they think, and explain to them that we're concerned that if it go big or go home. You know, Casey's point's well taken, you know, that we're not going to get that economic development boost that we're hoping for if we have it too small.
Right.
Well, nobody knows.
Yeah,
Nobody knows. what
Phasing
that
too. I
is.
mean, the school's gonna be here for a long
And
time until,
Whatever
assuming it
we
goes
come up
somewhere
with has to be
else.
done
Ultimately, they
in-
gotta build it. Kids are still gonna go here until it's built, I think for 5 years.
We're trying to avoid that. Barbara said that they could just unravel it all, but we're trying to get at least a consensus with this group presented to the, for initial feedback so that we can then like really get into the drawings with some sense that there's been some discussion with it.
It's important to put in the memo specific asks you have of the select board. If you want input on, would you feel comfortable, you know, with more sports complex or whatever those things that you're looking for? I think they'll naturally tell you. But if you want something from them, be specific to ask for it.
So are we not going through each one to differentiate based on the recommended motion that Lucy made? I'm confused.
Can you say that
Have we
again?
stopped?
No, I think that was just discussion around this, I think the vote about the housing is where there
Right.
was some discussion of that motion. And I think that would be where we need to go to get clarity on.
Well, I thought we had that from Lindsay. Lindsay was voting that we just keep the lots on Chickadee. I mean, she didn't make the vote, but that's what she was talking about. So the
Yeah.
consistent thing was housing on each of the scenarios. So 4, 5, and 6 would each have Chickadee housing, which they have, correct?
At a minimum.
At a minimum.
The motion was just to, have some sort of housing be included on all 3 site plans, conceptual
And
site plans.
for
and then-
Lindsay's motion, it was the Chickadee. And
It
then there
wasn't a part of the
was-
motion. That was just a comment. That was just a suggestion as they were looking at, because they're gonna now do site development. They're gonna dig deeper into those bubble conceptual programs. And I was like, if my thought was that one was the moderate as suggested, and if we wanted to offer the opportunity for a lower level of the housing to show the select board what it would look like if there was some housing, but the most focus was on the economic development component of this, then that would possibly be a helpful thing to present to the board as well. But it wasn't a motion, that was just my comment.
No,
so
no, I know, but
apologize.
in the size of in the presentation of a bubble, right? Aren't we trying to get to the bubbles?
I was just following that was kind of putting to bed the unit, number 4, sort of covering housing. I don't know that we've gotten to the specifics of that.
When we're talking about 5, eliminating the big chunk of housing, keeping the Chickadee and putting fields there. Did I miss something? Or was that what you wanted with what you're talking about? I'm gonna vote against it, just so you all know, but I want to get you what you want. That's all I'm trying to do in the bubbles.
Yeah, I didn't motion and there was no,
No, I know that,
Attempt
Lindsay.
for a
but You
vote.
were talking that way, yeah, to help us get there, that's all.
okay. I didn't mean to cause confusion. I was just,
No, you
Yeah, I
didn't.
mean, so
right?
should we have a motion to include one option that is the minimalist option? So we would have 2 options that are the moderate option, but you would have one option that is what we're looking at here on the page, and Jeff and his team is just going to rework it to add a few more fields, and that is just one of the options that will go to the select board.
Correct, I
on the
thought
floor.
that's what we were doing. And then the third one would be, what do you want to do on the 6th?
Option 6.
I don't think we've finished going through the memo yet. So if we wanted to readdress the number 6, ME small, number 7, municipal commercial offices. And then we move to. Sure, I didn't know. We just kind of stopped the conversation. I was just following the agenda for minutes context.
If we
Sorry.
go back to the housing for one moment, I think I have potential kind of clarity on this,
Okay,
which is the committee took a vote that some sort of housing be on all 3, and that passed, wasn't unanimous. Then I think the secondary vote, is really, I think it's a little bit clearer to me, is that one has the moderate, one has just Chickadee, and I think one would have like a low density. I think that it's come up. I think it allows us to show these 3 different variations of housing, and I think that's all we really wanted to get out of that housing discussion. So if the committee is okay with that, I think that gives us the clarity. So coming out of these 3 concepts, the town will see housing on Chickadee. The town will see, at a minimum, 6 to 12 single family homes clustered together. And that's kind of like a low density version. And then there would be one that would draw moderate density, not using the word density, moderate. You might have a couple apartment buildings, and it would have the 6 to 12 housing units, just for everyone to see what that looks like on each of these scenarios. So that, to me, that informs us on the next steps, barring what Lindsay said, the next 2 discussions. And then I think if it got lost in all this translation, I don't think we need to necessarily pick a specific bubble diagram tonight. I think we now have the input, collectively as to, based on these bubble diagrams, we're going to draw these 3 concept plans. So hopefully that's a little clearer.
We're gonna wait and hear what the select board says.
Correct, after
and
their
then-
input, and then immediately if they, depending on their input, we're trying to put pen and paper and start drawing.
So for number 6, then you're going to change the 7-acre piece that goes into the front woods, and you're going to put a low density. I don't know what low density, because that wasn't presented by the housing committee. So, a low density, I don't know I think it's 2 to 6 acre, 2 to 6 units per acre or something.
Yes.
I think you just want to have one lower density so that you could show an option that allowed for the vast majority of the property to be used for. So it's Chickadee Lane and then the rest is sports complex.
Mhm.
I do like the option that shows the housing here though, because I think that's interesting and it's different than when you're showing it over here. I think if you have-
That's what all the housing people, I think that if you don't show one in the housing by the police station, you're gonna get a huge pushback. And, both the Affordable Housing Trust and the Housing Committee, well, that's what their recommendation is.
I think we need to just ask the select board, what level of housing are you envisioning seeing here? We're having some difficulty deciding how much and whether we need to present more land for sports complex to make it the size needed to make it an economic development driver for the community.
Yeah.
And see what they have to say.
Yeah, and then we will move away from the bubble diagrams and start into the concepts, but it'll take all these bits and pieces of the bubble diagrams and the discussion, and it'll lead us to the three drawings that we're charged with preparing.
I think it's really important, Kathy's point about that wooded area. That wooded area was very important for a lot of people to keep
In the front.
in the front.
I think a buffer in the front with the wooded area is
Yeah.
important, but I don't think it needs to be 500 or 600 feet deep. I guess was my point. That's why some of it was being shown. Well, maybe this would be a good place for the house, some individual houses to like a habitat type thing to go on.
If that's important for the communities to keep that piece of forest, which I kind of agree with, because it has isn't there a piece, is there a vernal pool in there or is it
No.
just wetlands? But it's
Yeah, we're
kind of a-
protecting, all of this would be green.
Yeah, so.
It just wouldn't be
It's
all of it.
interesting to note that that might be a barrier to fitting everything we want on the site, and I think it's a shout out to your open space people and your conservationists. So.
So I think the final question on housing is if the committee is willing to take a second vote on 3 levels of housing on each of the 3. So right now there's a vote that some sort of housing is on all 3.
Yes.
We're just seeking a little bit more guidance from the committee, whether
I think-
we can do a moderate.
Do
sort
you
of
have
low
a
density and then just the
suggested
chickadee.
motion that you want to?
I don't know whether you want to hamstring yourself down to those things right now.
Okay.
I think you want to get some input from the select board on, if we say moderate and low, and they're like, no, we want at least what the community housing committee listed as their moderate on at least 2 of them, that gives us some input. But then we can have the conversation about where we wanted to eliminate some of it so that we could really create the sports complex. What do you think about that? They're gonna have opinions.
Mhm.
And you don't want to be going down the road and having a vote. Again, they're all preliminary votes.
We can work with that. I think just with the caution that maybe the select board, if they don't give clarity.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Ask.
All right.
We got it.
So we will just stick with some sort of housing in all 3 with an understanding of the ideas, and then we'll get some input hopefully on November 3rd.
Yeah.
Okay.
And specifically put in the memo that, we're looking for some guidance.
Well, maybe we need to specify that for sure in terms of when in the first page where you indicate that you're looking for guidance, not a vote.
Mhm.
But that and I noticed when the library was there, they went down and everybody on the board gave an opinion.
Good.
So,
Okay. Great.
Hmm.
6 and 7 should be a little more straightforward. We tackled all the hard ones. So I'm scrolling to page 7. Emmy Small. So the school district wrote a letter. It's on record. It was part of Muck's kind of like initial discussions. The ask is really based on the information provided that Muck is advised to recommend that a new elementary school be included in one of the concept plans. We've talked about that a lot. I don't think we're going to
Show
specifically
anything.
draw out what a school will look like, but we're gonna hold that space. Timeline, it's just important to note that the town's is gonna be beginning the MSBA process, and that's expected to maybe take a year. starting in January. So this is gonna be an outstanding kind of question for a little while. And then we did make the note about compatible uses and just trying to show that we think that the school combined with this kind of town recreational level of sports facilities is probably the most likely scenario that would match together and be compatible. So I think with that, that kind of summarizes the any small discussion.
So did you want to go through municipal?
Well, I think our objective was to make sure that we have clarity, and so that would be a vote. And
I'll move-
keeping
I'll
it-
move
Semi
that.
small.
Yeah. keeping it informed.
Second,
We need a roll call, so start up by Lindsay,
I,
Casey,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Andrew.
Aye.
Barbara,
Yes.
Sharon, yes.
Great. And then the final one, at least in terms of what I was expecting to cover, is the municipal and / commercial offices, just basically the idea of converting the Mattacheese school building into offices. We talked a lot about it at the beginning. Estimated cost to convert it to offices is 40, and actually I should say this is offices and converting the gymnasium. It's kind of converting the whole building to offices and the gymnasium, but that's $47 million for just the offices, and a total of 55 million if you include renovating the gym and everything together. So we had talked about this at one other point, which is where I came up with this preliminary discussions with Muck reveal limited interest in this scenario. There is a memo from the assistant town administrator that really indicates that the only potential service that could move to Mattacheese is really town hall. And then through this memo, we're identifying the conversation with the architect was that if the Mattacheese school buildings were converted to office, it would be much larger than is necessary for town offices. And so just kind of taking that in totality, it just doesn't seem like the highest and best use to continue to vet as part of the process. And so that's the request is, confirming that this group is okay with not having that be part of the concept plans. That
No municipal services.
I mean, considering we all agreed to demolish. the place.
Correct, yes.
Agreed.
So, very good point.
A little detail.
We didn't know how you were gonna vote on that, so.
Sure. For sure.
So, based on that, do you want to vote? We've
I think the
reached a
vote is that you're not-
consensus as to whether renovation or existing.
I think it's
So-
that you're not gonna move
No.
municipal services to the site.
I will move that.
Second, somewhere?
I'll second that.
Lindsay, I'm gonna start with you again.
I,
Joe,
Aye.
Casey,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Barbara?
Yes.
Yes, Sharon. All right,
Good work.
so, select board update. I mentioned to Jeff early as we were sitting here, that he did a wonderful job and Heather did a wonderful job on this whole packet, and we're very appreciative of all your efforts. And one of the other things was that it was also producing a document to present for our November 4th presentation to the select board. So I mentioned that I might just want to review our time frame since we last gave the report in early June. We hadn't finished really all of the finals. So I'd like to just put a couple things in, and if you're okay with that, allow me to do that for you. I'll work it with Jeff just to add it in so we can move on.
I think if we just agree by consensus, the muck that the chair will work with staff and the consultants to finalize the memo. And then also the PowerPoint presentation for the select board meeting.
And then we don't have to go over everything. If you're okay with that and comfortable with it. And basically it's things in my mind that I would like to add are that we finalized or every land use team finalized their reports to us. So that was an action that we had, so that we received all of those. You've already indicated the community meeting, and I think there was a survey.
Did we talk about this?
Stuff.
Survey should be listed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
the
think-
survey should be listed, that it was done, and you've done a great job with figuring that out, and it's posted.
Yeah.
And blah, 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 it's there. And then the other thing too is, I took it upon myself just to talk with Bob in regards to the hazardous waste. I've learned from my experience with Bill that critical path is important. So I took the initiative of calling Vertex, which is the hazardous waste company that the school used since 1988, and talked with the gentleman there. And I arranged for him to talk with Bob, the administrator, in terms of getting information for a cost analysis. So I think Bob was excited that he had a conversation with him, and that they're kind of talking about doing things together. So that is another thing I think I'd like to put in. And I may just take a look at around my house with papers all over the place and just figure out there might be something else. Unless the committee, Barbara, do you have something?
No, I'm just requesting that once you kind of finalize thoughts and ideas, you just kind of maybe get a quick outline. You can email the team.
Sure, and actually, they'll probably have it as a prior for the select board, right?
Yes.
So we'll have Jeff send that to everybody, if that's all right. If I
Send
may
it.
ask that to do, or Kathy to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And that would have everything. The,
I mean, just so that I
The
know
sheet.
you're talking points.
Sure.
Yeah, oh, yeah, we'll definitely do that. And we'll send the PowerPoint too.
Okay.
all right, and so where are we now?
Talk about the schedule, yeah.
Okay,
Prepared to pull it up briefly.
yeah,
We got some issues
Okay. Yeah.
on the dates here. How,
We
you're gonna turn around from the select board meeting on the 4th to reviewing the 3 concept plans with the muck at the meeting on the 5th, on the
Um,
13th?
I think the goal when I put that together was
The
to allow
21st.
Muck to talk about
Okay,
any feedback from the select board before we hit go.
right.
So that was the quick turnaround.
But we're not gonna meet with the select board then to review the 3 concept plans on the 12th,
no, that's December 2nd.
December 2nd, sorry.
Is that okay? Is that
I
time
think
frame?
we-
okay?
I think when I was
I think
trying,
it's,
uh,
I think you guys should review the concept plans before you present them to
yeah,
the select board is all. And the timing doesn't work very well because your meeting in December is on the 11th. And then the next select board meeting in December would be on the 16th. It's really,
Yeah.
it's not possible
Yeah.
because of the Thursday.
I guess the big question is whether, so we will get initial feedback from the select board on the 4th of November, and then Michael can debrief on that, talk, make sure we have the final direction, and then I maybe we do not go to the select board before the
Right.
community meeting. Whether that's.
Right,
How long do you think it's gonna take you from the meeting on the
It's
13th
gonna take us all that time, so I think like we're gonna need until,
the 12/11?
and we won't have finalized drawings for the 11th. We'll have an outline of what we're showing, but it won't have like trees and details at that point. We'll need to work through that until the January 8th meeting. We would kind of have like the final concept plans. That's our target to
So
present community meeting.
is there, I just feel like the select board need to see the concept plans.
Before the community meeting.
That's a question. I just don't, yeah. That's what we were trying to do, and we were hoping to make it the meeting on October 21st, but that was booked full, so we got bumped to the 4th, and it kind of throws off the schedule a little bit.
Yeah.
So I just think we need to think about that a little bit. Maybe the community meeting gets pushed a little bit in order to allow that. I can't remember when they're. meeting
Yeah,
in
I mean, I
January.
think just thinking broadly, if we can get to the select board in January,
Right,
we would need to push the community meeting to February. Which might be doable.
it'd be like
And
the 11th.
We want to keep as much as we can in like the timeline.
Mhm.
And I'm not speaking with Heather directly on this, obviously, right now, but
Not meant.
I'm not sure we want to go, we could potentially go a little bit past March, but we don't want to keep pushing that out, because if there's the secondary step that there's funding to take with, you know, if it's funds for mass development and if we have the 3 and we want to move to that next level, we want to be careful not to go too far, like past March or April. And that's just, I'm just ad-libbing here to just kind of map that out a little bit further.
I guess that if you're gonna need the full month to come up with the concept plans,
We will.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure because we're gonna be drawing 3 different, you know, pretty different.
and I want some
versions.
collab.
Yes, exactly.
And it's holiday season.
And it's holiday season. So, let's look at this, and I think we would propose to push the community meeting. And there's nothing set in stone about the
Correct,
community meeting.
right.
We were just gonna have the goal, the expectation.
Yep,
So the idea would be maybe like you looking at February 12th, because February break happens right after that week, the 3rd week in February usually, and we want to try to get the community meeting before that. So
Maybe
push everything out a month.
with the 28th, yeah. But then you're getting into April. The
Do you
28th
wanna-
of January is also a Wednesday that's free, so just something to think about for a community meeting. Yeah, that would give 2 extra weeks in the timeline. I don't know when I don't remember the select board meeting in January.
is the community meeting now on a Wednesday? Is that your preference for a Wednesday or?
Wednesdays are good because the hearing room's free every other Wednesday, the 2nd and 4th, because planning board has it the
Okay.
1st and 3rd.
I still don't think January 28th
It's
is
too-
enough if we're
too soon.
gonna present something to the select board and be able to incorporate any feedback from them, then we wouldn't want to do that. So I think we're looking for February, and we would want to do it before February break.
Yep.
Do you want to
community
take our meeting on the 12th? of
No,
this-
you need
February?
the hearing room, so it would
Yeah.
need to be on the 11th.
Okay,
Okay.
sorry.
And I think,
Sorry.
I
Hello.
think this committee would need a special meeting to schedule in between there, because we want
That's
to
what I'm
come to you,
trying to get at. Yeah.
then go to the select board, and then get ready for the community meeting. So,
It's the 27th, the meeting.
January 27th.
okay.
It's the 27th.
So which are we doing then?
So we would be moving the select board from December to January 27th,
Okay,
which it's fine. And it pushes us out a little bit, but
mhm.
So you'll redo the schedule with that.
yeah, we can redo that. Yep, yep.
And then everything else remains the same?
No, I think that there would
Everything gets
be,
pushed out.
I think there would be a special muck meeting that might need to happen.
Okay,
And Heather's saying we want to be done by the end of March, so
all right.
Is that what you
maybe
said?
we can kind of put our heads back together on the schedule and come back with a updated version.
Okay,
So we won't anchor that community meeting.
Tuesday nights are a possibility if the select board's not meeting, but sometimes they like to squeeze one meeting in there, so you really have to say no, like, we've got the room. But that's a possibility too.
What was the date of that? You said
I don't know when they're meeting in February, but on Tuesdays might be a possibility in addition to the 2nd and 4th Wednesday.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
I think we'll put our head back together on this one, then I appreciate that input.
Excellent.
all right. And I keep losing my agenda.
The minutes.
What's next?
Minutes.
Minutes. Oh, hallelujah. 27th is first?
Yep, January
All
27th.
right, so do I have any comments about the 27th? Is any corrections or anything like that? So could I have a motion to accept the minutes, the January 27th,
I make a motion
2025,
To accept the minutes for January 27th.
2025? And is there a second?
Second,
Chapatska.
And all the, I have to do roll call. So Casey, roll
Aye.
call. Lindsay,
Aye.
Joe,
aye,
John?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Barbara?
Yes,
Sharon, yes. Okay, how about the minutes for August 11th? Anyone have a motion?
So moved.
second,
And thank you, Joe. Joe, how about an aye or a nay?
aye,
Is there any discussion about the minutes? Any problem? No. Okay, Casey,
Aye.
Lindsay,
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Barbara?
yes.
Sharon, yes. And may I have a motion to adjourn.
so moved,
There's a second?
Second.
Never, never. A roll call again. Casey,
Aye.
Lindsay,
I,
Joe,
Aye.
John, Andrew,
Aye.
Barbara, Sharon, yes. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you,
you, everyone.
thanks, Jeff and Heather. Appreciate you.
Good conversation.
Thank you.
We appreciate you
They
too.
won't all be that long, I don't think.
It needed a conversation. Thanks, Megan, for coming.
Night all.
Night.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Have a good one. Thanks,
Andrew.
everybody.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Barbara.
See you on the 4th.